Yeah, we have Omar Sattar today on the bunker. It's turned out to be a little bit different than I anticipated this talk. Omar is a real estate guy, and I thought that I could kind of talk briefly about his journey and then talk about how real estate market works. A lot of interesting things there, at least for some people. Anyway, turns out that he has a very, very complicated, let's say, relationship with his family traditions, partly to the religion, Muslim, and that has kind of been very influential in his life from childhood and until today, a 50-year-old man. So, yeah, it turned out that it's more complicated and somehow has more angles to it than I realized. And so we ended up talking more just about his kind of journey and story and how these things kept kind of creeping up to him. Until eventually he broke, got depressed and had to get help. But he has worked himself to a better place now than where he was at his worst. And so it was an interesting to hear this. First generation of Muslim immigrated family to the UK. It's I think those of us who were just born in the neighborhood where our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and everyone is from, I think we've had a much easier path than those. Check it out. And about the sponsors, the Oat Bar Oatmeal Skyr, healthy juices, healthy snacks, no nasty ingredients, everything is clean, made in-house. The skyr is from an organic local farm. The oatmeal is organic as well. Amazing place, open from 8:30 until 3 o'clock on Monday to Thursday, and Fridays from 8:30 to 1:30, and Saturdays 8:30 to 1:30. And you can also order on Wolt and Bolt, the Oat Bar in Karlín, Prague. And Alfred Jobs, alfred.cz, the best job search platform in the Czech Republic and Slovakia, and in Iceland actually. They're in Iceland as well. And thousands of jobs coming your way, but instead of having to sit hours looking, you can basically set up your preferences once and the jobs will come your way. And you don't even need to look because Alfred lets you know when the job is there. So, and Alfred has a web and an app. The app is in the app stores. Check it out, guys, because you never know. The dream job might be just around the corner. Thank you. Okay, I have Omar Sattar in the bunker. Omar, welcome.
Hi, Omar. Thanks for having me.
How are you today?
Actually, quite good because it's sunny outside. It's nice day we've had, as you know. But
it turned out better than it was supposed to be. I just last week I got my garden furniture and when I finished loading it out to the terrace, it started snowing, and I was like, how appropriate is this? You're a real estate guy.
I am. Yeah, I'm a real estate guy. Yeah, by education.
Yeah, and we have some mutual friends. You played football with some Icelandic legends here in Prague.
I have, yes. I played with Icelandic. I still play football, but I played with some Icelandic legends. I'm Norwegian. I know it's not. Scandinavians, yes.
Yeah, that's the B class of Scandinavia. Iceland is the A class.
I don't think Norwegians would agree with you.
Oh,
but anyway,
they don't hear
let's
this.
not go there.
They don't hear this. But I told the guy Siggy who you played with. I wrote him on Facebook that his legend still lives in Prague. That 15 years after he played his last game in Prague, he's still considered the best football player to play on
and does he remember me or doesn't remember?
He said this annoying guy from Scotland.
There was a couple of Scottish guys. It might have been the other one.
So you're Scottish?
Yeah, I'm Scottish. Yeah, I was born in Scotland. Yeah, close to Glasgow.
Yeah, and if I would ask you, who are you and what do you do, then what would you tell me?
I would say Omar Sattar from Scotland, and I work in the real estate industry in Czech
Basically
Republic.
everything that I've said before.
Well, that's the trick. You just repeat back what the interviewer says to you. But so I'm a real estate expert. Yeah, and sounds fancy,
But one of the more senior ones. I mean, you've been here a long time.
I have. Yeah, I moved to Prague in 1997. In July the 20th, I arrived. But I came as a student on a field trip from university. They brought us here to have a look at the emerging economies. So we had been in Berlin, Dresden, and then...
but that was earlier.
That was in 93, November 93. And it was different between 93 and 97. Even in that time. And it's a lot different now, as we can see outside.
So you say you're a real estate guy, and I said it also, but what does it actually mean? I mean, what does it mean on a day-to-day basis to be a real estate guy? In your case?
In my profession, okay, in my case. So... currently, I'm working in real estate investment. So I take clients' money and invest it in real estate. And in the past, I've done other jobs in Prague all around real estate. I've only ever worked in this industry. So when I first came here, I was effectively working valuing buildings. So when banks wanted to lend money to owners or developers, I often would produce the report to say this is the value of the building, because when they were borrowing money, the loan was based on a percentage of the value. So I did things like that. And people needed it for accounts or whatever reason they needed a valuation. They were selling the
depreciation or appreciation.
Well, it was slightly different, but not that, but connected to that. Yeah, so that's what I do.
And right now you invest, and you have an investment fund, like a crowdfunding thingy, right?
Yes, the business I work for now has in the real estate has effectively two legs. It has what people would call crowdfunding, which will be use people's money who gave us it to invest in real estate in Czech and Slovakia. And then recently we set up a property fund, a real estate fund, which is a different structure and different rules. Very shortly, the crowdfunding, the money's not there on tap. You don't have it in your pocket. The fund, you have the money.
You collect into
you've
the
already
fund
collected.
Going,
Yes.
And but are you like are you the boss or am I talking to someone here? You know,
I could have been somebody. Am I the boss? I have been the boss in the past.
Yeah.
You know, pay the cost to be the boss, as some rapper said. Currently, I'm the head of the real estate division of Crowdberry. I was brought in specifically to grow the real estate business, because Crowdberry doesn't only invest in fact, if you look at the portfolio of Crowdberry's investors, the majority of the transactions, which is about 33 transactions have happened so far, have been in SMEs, from cancer diagnostic to yogurt manufacturer to hockey stick producer to eco capsules. It's a wide range, and then some is real estate. But they wanted to grow the real estate side.
So they brought
me in, and they wanted the fund set up, and they asked me to set it up.
But like, you're one of the old names in the business here, right? In the real estate kind of. I mean,
looks are the same. I look young, but I've been around a bit. Yeah, around the block. 23 years, 24 years or something in Czech Republic.
That's crazy. But anyway, we met and we had a chat in the amazing Oat Bar, and which is one of the sponsors, by the way. You ate porridge in Scotland.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I still eat porridge now.
Yeah, but then you need to go and eat it in the Oat Bar. You know that.
Yeah, best place in Prague.
Exactly.
Give me the money later. I'll for saying that.
Yeah, got the gun on your head. And then I was kind of. I didn't really know a lot about you. I heard a few things. I checked around with our mutual friends and stuff like that. But I kind of realized that you have a really interesting background, interesting childhood, and So I actually wanted you to maybe take me a little bit back to that, and we would then hopefully later come a little bit more onto the real estate and how that works here in Prague and all the things around that, which, at least I am curious about. But if people are not curious, then they can just stop listening then. But then at least they hear your story, which I think is quite interesting. So you're born in Scotland?
Yeah, born and bred, as we say in Scotland. Born in Scotland, close to Glasgow, just on the outskirts of Glasgow, small town called Coatbridge.
And
A lot of people don't admit from being there.
no, but your family, your roots are elsewhere.
Yeah, my parents weren't born in Scotland. They were born in Pakistan and moved to Scotland when they were young, like ages of 12. My dad, when he was 14. But my dad came to Scotland via England. But we won't hold that against them.
And they married young, you told me, and
Yeah. So my mum and dad come from a small village in the middle of Pakistan, effectively. A really small rural village, farming kind of community. It's about
from the same
village. Yeah,
they come from the same village.
They come from
but
the
they
same,
came here separately.
came here separately. Yeah.
No, sorry, here to Scotland separately.
They came to Scotland separate with their fathers. So my grandfathers effectively had the idea to move to Britain, and at that time, because they moved in the my grandfathers probably came a little bit earlier, because that's normally what happens with immigrants. The male goes first, secures a place, brings his kids over. So my grandfathers at different times, at different places, moved to the UK. And somehow my mum's side of the family first ended up in Scotland, probably because they moved to Scotland because they knew someone who'd moved from their village to Scotland. As immigrants, that often happens. You go where you know someone. Probably when the Czechs moved to the States, a lot of them moved to Chicago because there was another Czech person there. So the same thing. So I'm quite lucky that my grandparents moved up to Scotland, because that meant that I ended up being Scottish. So my grandfathers moved, late 50s, early 60s. Also, it's quite notable because Pakistan, India and Pakistan were one country until 1947, I think, if I get my history right. But please check that on the internet yourself. So 47 was separation. But anyway, so there was a colony. It was a colony of Britain. And post-war, Britain was rebuilding. They were inviting immigrants, or it was easy for immigrants to
get the license.
And in fact, people who came from the Caribbean were already British subjects. They had a British passport, because it was a colony and under the stewardship or governorship of Britain. Whilst India, Pakistan, you had a Pakistani passport, where it was very, very easy to move there. And they were rebuilding their economy. They needed cheap labor. So and it was, more money than working on a field in Pakistan.
And a better life.
Well, depends how you view it. But that's what they wanted, to better themselves. So they moved over. So I remember asking my dad about this, moving first to Rochdale when he was a kid. And I think the story was that they got a train from the nearest big town to Karachi. The first time he'd been on a train, at the age of 14, you can imagine. And it gets on a flight. And I don't know if it stopped anywhere, but it ends up, probably went to London, no doubt. Then gets on a bus or another train and goes to the relative's house, or where the house that my grandfather had secured for them in Rochdale. My grandfather had a job in a factory or something. And my dad was the eldest, and my dad is one of 6. There was more kids, but the first few unfortunately passed away at a very early age. So my dad wasn't really the eldest. There had been 2 kids before him, which I believe were girls. But anyway, so my dad was the first, and then he has, how many brothers? 4 brothers and a sister, of which the last 2 brothers were born in the UK. So you can imagine, you live in a village, you barely got electricity, you don't have an inside toilet, you get on a train, you've never been on a train.
You get on a flight,
like what the heck? You're on this bird that's in the air, flying. You end up in a country, it's colder where you come, people speak different language of which you know some elementary words. And then you go north into North England. And I suppose the same for my mum. She had a more convoluted, she had a different, unfortunately, kind of different roots. At a young age, on my mum's side, her parents divorced when my mum was very young. But my mum went with her dad's side. Her dad's side took her.
Which is very unusual.
It's kind of unusual, yeah. In most cases, unusual. I'm not sure in that culture of Pakistan. Anyway, it would have even been unusual then. I think maybe actually thinking about it, Almar, and we can go into this a little bit, you could think maybe a woman with a child might be more difficult to remarry than a male. So my mum's, my grandparents were first cousins. On my mum's side, yes, which isn't unusual. Like, you keeps the the land and the wealth in the family. Just like the royal family. You marry your first cousin.
Yeah.
And even in the UK, that in other Western European countries that happened. So they got divorced. My grandmother on my mom's side remarried. My grandfather on my mom's side also remarried. So my mom was the only child of that relationship, and she went with her father. So my mom's grandmother
raised her.
Her father went to Scotland for a while to secure a place. Got remarried to a lady from Pakistan, a second marriage. So my grandfather's second wife, and he had over time another 3 children. So my mom had one half sister, 2 half brothers. They were all born in Scotland. So my grandfather took his new wife to Scotland and then called for his daughter.
But there's a lot of people from one small village in Pakistan in Scotland, in one place.
There was, I don't know how you knew that, but that did in our village, it's not my village, but my grandparents or my parents' village, a lot of them moved to Scotland. In fact, in the 60s, a lot of them came from that village because it's again, or the neighbouring village. Again, it's this kind of immigrant thing. You go with people that you know.
Where you know people and you feel safer in
safety
the
in numbers.
Yeah. But and you told me that they got married quite young, and it was an arranged marriage, right?
It was, yeah. So obviously, at some point, my dad then from England with his parents, etc., ended up moving to Glasgow. Can't remember why. That must have been for work. Or, again, knowing someone from the village. And so my grandfather had a daughter who was 17, and on my dad's side, my dad was 19. And the parents go, oh, that's the people from the other side of the village. They live 20, 30 miles away or 50 kilometers from us. They obviously know each other. It's a small community. You have a daughter, we have a son. Why don't they get them married?
And they had no say about it themselves?
No, not at all. So my mom and my dad spoke for the first time on their wedding day.
What the fuck? And wait, so this is what, in like 60...
let's get it right. So my mom was 17. She's born in 1950, 67.
Yeah.
And by 68, they have their first kid. My oldest sister.
And how, I mean, I'm curious because obviously arranged marriages are not a new thing.
No.
But it's an old thing where I come from in Iceland. I mean, we had this, and we you paid with to give your daughter away. You had to pay someone for taking her. And it was the norm back then. Whatever you think about it today, but how, like, I'm just curious. How did you feel this somehow, or was it visible in their relationship, or how do these people?
In terms of they love each other,
yeah,
and get on? Yeah, it was visible. They didn't seem that well suited.
No.
They were married young. There's only one picture of their wedding day, and it's of my dad standing at the doorway of, I think, my grandfather, not his own, but anyway, standing at the doorway of a house. That's the only picture of their wedding. It's almost like it was get these two people married off, and because there's too much burden on, especially on the girl side. Maybe my dad's side is slightly different because of the cultural reason. Maybe we can touch on that. Yeah. So yes, but how did that reflect in their relationship? Is the question. Married young, you're very young, late teenage or early 20. My mum was 18 something. She had a kid. She had one kid. My sister. 1 year later, almost exactly to the date, she has a second daughter. 16 months later, I appear. I'm the third kid. 4 years later, the fourth kid arrives, another girl. So I've got 3 sisters, and I'm the boy, and I'm number 3 out of 4. So you got all these young kids, and you're barely 23 or something, 20, something like that. I don't know, whatever.
And how? So I guess they have been quite, how do you say, strict with the religion. I mean, this comes out of the religious background and the tradition.
No, I think this is cultural, the arranged marriage, because they happen in other countries, Western European. It's not maybe it's driven by religion, but it's it's happened. But yeah, but the religion we didn't touch on. They're Muslims. Pakistan is a predominantly Muslim country, and I was born
they
Muslim.
brought that with them there. I mean, like I mean, your
The
parents.
marriage was a Muslim ceremony, and they brought the priest over to bless the marriage, which is the ceremony is very short. It's like within 10 minutes, which is kind of good because then you can eat some food.
Yeah. And take pictures. No,
pictures. No alcohol. No alcohol. One picture. One picture.
But
no videos.
And what did they do? What did your parents do?
So my dad started off as a bus driver, and his brother, second one down, was a bus conductor. And sometimes it would be on the same route in Glasgow. They got out of that fairly quickly, or my dad did. He'd been the eldest boy. And he got a shop, which is in the UK. If anyone's from the UK, they will know that the Indians and Pakistanis often run what they would call in Czech potraviny,
like a fruits.
Here the Vietnamese run them. In the 60s, 70s in the UK, where there was no big supermarkets, they started that the Pakistanis and Indians would own we call them news agents, and people call them corner shops. Not all of them are at a corner, but in the past, a lot of them used to be at a corner. So those corner shops, if you go to Scotland, and all the people from the village who moved over, they all set up the same thing. So your uncles and friends of your mum and dad, or even because they made other friends from other parts of Pakistan, because it was not just my mum and dad's village were in Scotland. So let's not assume it somehow it's just one village populating Scotland. It's a nice story, by the way, if it was like that. So most of them, some of them were doctors, but they were probably not from our village, that's for sure. They were from a major city in Pakistan, and they did a degree and then did a conversion course in Scotland or England and were a doctor. So as you can imagine, that stereotypical thing, well maybe you can't imagine because you're not from the UK. So if you're in Scotland or England, Asians, Indians, Pakistanis are normally doctors at that time. There's only a doctor you meet, or they're manual people. And then if they're entrepreneurs, it tends to be a shop. And if you didn't have a shop, it was like, wow, your dad does something else other than doctor or shop. Yeah. And my dad started to do other things else. So he was the, I don't know, what do you call Derek Delboy. Derek Trotter is I don't know if you know the program. There is a program in the UK called Fools and Horses. It's about a failed entrepreneur. My dad wasn't that bad in terms of he was failed. I mean, he did relatively well at some times, and he did not so well at other times. But he was an entrepreneur, and it was all around shops, potravinis or convenience stores, we would call them, or newsagents. Or he started to branch out into fruit shops, clothing shops. He had a clothing factory.
And this is how he provided for the family.
Yes.
And your mom did. I guess she didn't really work because she had.
No, actually, funny enough, my mum helped out in the shop. She did when she wasn't raising the kids. But yeah, effectively, my mum was a housewife. Yeah. So she had a very hard job with
all
of these young kids. I mean, I don't know how she managed. She must have been superwoman.
And you started helping out in these businesses.
Yes, as in many. And it's not only specific to a Pakistani Asian culture. I mean, any parents, families, whether they be Scottish, white people, or whatever around the world, family has business. The kids help out. Work, they start working. You help out.
Nowadays, it's banned. It's
it's not allowed. So, at one point, my dad decided on the weekends to try selling. He had a market stall. There was a big market called Ingleston. It's near Edinburgh. And this is years after, so I don't know, it must have been about 8 or something. So he'd had his shops, and I don't know why. Maybe it's between businesses. One had failed, or I don't know. And he moved around a lot because he found a new business. We have to go to this town now, whatever. So anyway, the point of the story is he set up market stall selling belts and ladies' blouses, which I think maybe he made in his factory where he had about 10 machinists, which was above his shop. And he said, let's go and do this on the weekend. So I had to go with him to the market stall in Ingleston and sell belts and blouses and get people to come and look at them and say, 3 belts for £1, shout it, there was other stall people were shouting, whether they were selling butchery meat or socks or screws. There was all these rows of. I was outdoor as well, and I remember it was relatively okay weather that time because I've worked in markets many times, and it's a long day. It starts at market opens at 8, so you have to be there at 7. And when you're a kid, you have to get up. We have to get up at 6.
And that, for a kid, that's really
you're
early.
Like, I have to go. Like, yeah. Because if your dad needs to go to the bathroom, someone needs to stand. There's money there. Or he maybe takes the money with him, but there's goods on the stall, so someone needs to look after it. And my mum used to make us a packed lunch, and she used to make it with what's called paratha. It's like a type of chapati with butter on it. So she'd make nice chutney. So my mum would prepare that the night before, some traditional, and a flask of tea. And that was the best part of the day because my dad had a van, like a van where he could stock. So you get at lunchtime. I went first. My dad was, you're going to have your lunch. So I'd go, he'd give me the keys. I'd open up the foil, the bag that I was in, have my chair, have a cup of tea. It was like try and drag it out because I knew I had to go back, and then I'd make sure my dad came out. He had his lunch, and he came back. But there was some satisfaction in that. When you sold stuff, you got to interact with people. It was like a hard day's work, and you might got, 10 pence at that time from your dad. My dad didn't give much money to me. He was pretty tight. He adopted the Scottish stereotype of not, being very frugal with his cash, especially when it came to his kids.
Yeah,
and his wife.
But you said that it was a bit. Some businesses were successful and others were not.
Yes,
and I think you told me that you decided to go into a boring real estate business because you were not the adventurous guy that your father was. I mean, what were there any consequences of his adventures?
Yeah, many. I already said that we moved around a lot because my dad decided he wanted to open up a business in a certain location in a town. So we moved, 5-6 times. I went to like 5 different primary schools, 2 different high schools, because
there was always a new adventure.
I'll go to this town. It doesn't have a fruit shop, a good one. So my dad and everyone would come to my dad for this kind of advice because he was seen as like an entrepreneur, a guy who saw the angle. So my dad was an angles guy. He always had to get good ideas, poor execution. He was one of those people. So he needed people around him to organize the finance accounts. But he was terrible. Didn't keep accounts. We used to get these reminders: you haven't paid your tax, you haven't paid your VAT. He would just pay it, but with a penalty and an estimate, which could have been double the amount he would have paid had he just paid an accountant. Submitted it on time. He didn't he was like I didn't understand why he couldn't get that. But also keep in mind that they never went to school in the UK. They were illiterate. They didn't they didn't learn English at Pakistani school. They went basic school. And at that time the checks and balances about whose kids are at school were, so my mum could be in Scotland from the age of like 12, 13.
Never schooled.
Never schooled. Kept at home. So you can imagine. So my parents' grasp of English was pretty good. My mum had spoke good English, and many relatives came to my mum. Can you please take me to the doctors and explain?
Help out, yeah.
Can you please go to the local authority because of this issue? Can you please do this? Because it needed someone who spoke English, and my mum picked it up. She was a smart lady. And I said, and my dad, so one of the reasons maybe he would just, he couldn't write properly. His writing was very basic. If he wrote something down on a piece of paper, it was like a child's writing. He could read.
That's like me.
He could read. Yeah, he could read, but he didn't do any schooling,
But you say he didn't pay his bills and stuff like this. How
on time? He didn't pay them on time. So sorry. What?
And but how did that? He still provided. He was still able to.
Yeah, from some extent, I had a good childhood. Parents were supportive. Well, they were around. They were, we had food on the table. Yeah, they didn't.
And a place to sleep.
A place to sleep.
But you didn't always have furniture, right?
Yeah, we didn't always have furniture. It didn't beat us, so we'll get to the furniture in a minute, but it makes me laugh. And it makes me cry maybe at the same time. But yes, so my dad's business, my dad was, so he was either for periods of time, like 3-5 years, he would be doing really well, And we would just stop here, but he couldn't stop opening the next business. At one time in Glasgow in the 80s, he had two very successful fruit shops, and he was good at fruit. He used to go to the market at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, get the best batch of fruit. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't shy working. My dad could work. He was a workhorse. He didn't take holidays. He worked 6-7 days a week, no problem. Well, I don't know if it was a problem, but he did it, and he was doing well. We're like, Dad, we don't need the fourth fruit shop. Fourth one would open. Dad, we don't need the laundry. Laundry would open. Dad, then he decided he wanted to be a baker, and he opened up a bakery factory where you produce bread rolls and things like that. He didn't know anything about this. So he leased this building, bought the equipment. After 6 months, it failed. Lease is still on the property. And that's the thing that brought him down to the furniture question. So this would be 84. I remember it because it was Olympics, LA Olympics. And also
in Los Angeles, Carl Lewis.
Yeah, Carl Lewis, yeah. And also remember it because West Indies visited England, and there's a game called cricket. And the West Indies completely obliterated the English, the black team versus the white team. And the big banner at the end of the fifth game was blackwash, not whitewash. But anyway, 84, my mum decides to go, you can go into this, decides to go on holiday back to Pakistan and take my 3 sisters. I stay in Scotland. I didn't want to go. I had been in 82. I didn't want to go again. I was like, so I stayed with friends and relatives, and not with my dad. My dad was around. He was working. So something had happened regarding unpayment of bills, and if you don't pay your bills, you get taken to court. And you have a sheriff officer that comes around your house and lists the assets in the house. And that obviously happened in that period. I didn't know it happened. So one day I was staying with my aunt. So I was staying with my dad's brother's family. My auntie was looking after me. So I was staying with them, and I thought I'd go and see my dad. I used to see him like once a week, see how he was. In fact, I used to come home and clean up his mess, hoover, open the windows. My dad used to smoke, so the place was stinking. We had a small flat, 6 people in it. A 2-bedroom apartment, very basic. So anyway, Dad wasn't, the most domesticated. I came home to see him. How is he? Maybe get some pocket money, which he would give me reluctantly, but he did give it to me. And the door of the apartment had been broken, and there was maybe some. I don't even think. It was broken. It was just different. It was bust, and it had been repaired, but really elementary repair. And I looked through the letterbox, and all our goods had been emptied. All the drawers had been emptied, so it was just like piles of clothes and rubbish. And I thought, what? We've been robbed. And I thought, what? And then luckily at that point, the neighbour opened her door and said, by the way, this is what happened. The sheriff officers came. Nobody was in. They kicked the door. The bailiffs, they're called, they kicked the door in, and they've removed the furniture. And I'm like, oh shit. Mum comes back in 2 weeks. So I'm like, all right, I better go and tell my uncle and aunt. So I tell my aunt and my uncle, and they get a hold of my dad. They phone my dad and say, you need to come home. And he's like very blasé about it. And my aunt, his brother's wife, his sister, is verbally giving him a hard time. And she said, you better sort this out before your wife gets here, because you'll be in trouble, because she's going to hit the roof when she says this. And it was not like my dad was unreliable. And this wasn't the first time these kind of things happened. And he then, what my dad did was he went out and bought second-hand furniture, which was pretty awful. Not that we had fancy furniture, but it was, and so he had to bring it in, and my aunts and friends had to come.
And what did your mom say when she found out?
Oh, she was crying.
Yeah.
She was in tears. She came back from her holiday after a month or 2 months in Pakistan to come home to empty out some basic furniture and clothes and bags lying in piles, which my aunt had tidied up the stuff, piled it, folded it nicely. And because my dad, he's not exactly an interior designer. He just bought a load of shit.
So when these things are going on, when you come home to an empty flat, the furniture is gone, stuff has been, it looks like a crime scene or a burglary.
Yeah.
How old are you?
84, I'd be 13.
And how does it feel?
The anxiety, anxious, you feel the stomach, the butterflies start turning. There's embarrassment that this has happened, and your neighbour and the community know this happened because we, the people next door then know, the people above know, and it's embarrassing. Yeah. And I think I probably was in tears. I don't remember too much,
I remember this. We had a neighbor like this in Iceland, and I really remember they were actually quite cool. They took every piece of bill that came in the mail and burned it in the toilet. And then, like 10 days before the end of the month, their electricity had been shut down, and so they plugged into our place.
Really?
And but I remember this, what you're saying, because I don't know how their kids felt at that time. But I, as a, how do you say, we as giving them access to our electricity, I felt superior somehow. I felt like, oh, these guys don't have it under control. I'm 6 years old, and I already have this sense. So I can imagine that it must have been hard for you to.
Yeah, I was angry with my father. I was having a go at him, saying, "How could you let this happen?" Because it wasn't the first time. This just wasn't out of the blue. Because of my dad's, say, disorganization and his this drive to keep, opening more businesses. He was one of those people who he was an entrepreneur. He liked the ideas. He was a great ideas guy. People used to come to him for advice on ideas. He could spot things on business. Would it work at this location? They would ask it. But it was like the buzz for him of the new thing, the laundry, the bakery.
Not the longevity of staying with something.
Yeah, he was a potato merchant. Was buying potato from farmers, bagging them, selling them on. He had shops in different cities, miles away from where we lived, which you couldn't manage. And it's a cash business. Money's going missing. It's not like today where you can track it better and it's on, credit card, ATM, whatever, PayPal. Or it's cash business. You have cash business. Money goes missing if you're not there. So it was just this. He couldn't manage it all, but he just wouldn't stop. People, uncles, friends, mum would try and get him to stop it. And he could for a while, but the temptation was too much for my dad. But so then not long after that would be within about a year, I don't know what period, but a very short period of time, he then effectively lost it all.
And went bankrupt.
I don't know if, technically, but no, I don't know if he went bankrupt. He did go bankrupt at least once that I know of. Might have gone, but anyway, something happened and he didn't have anything. He lost. He put his money into a venture with a relative and lost it all.
And how? I guess, was this the beginning of the end of your parents' marriage? Then,
no. You would think it would be, but culturally,
that's not an option.
Not an option for my mom. She can't walk away. In the earlier years. Around about 79, I remember, she threw my father out again for being this, how do you say, irresponsible. Yeah, that's irresponsible father. She threw him out, and I remember it was one of the few times at that age my dad hugged me. He said, "Your mum's throwing me out, and I won't see you again." I was playing the guilt trip. This must have been about 78 or 79. And
so you're maybe 10.
Yeah, 9, something like that. So he hugs me and I start crying because I'm not used to this, and he's saying I have to leave now. And he's like, and I then got angry with my mum. But he did it. He wasn't. He didn't beat. He did hit my mum once or twice. But and it's not. I'm not condoning that. It wasn't like there was mass beatings and stuff. He was very calm. And he was a point, and he lost his temper. But he wouldn't say very much. He was a very quiet kind of guy. He used to mumble when he spoke. People his brothers and friends used to make fun of that. They're like, what did you say? And so anyway, so it was like, it wasn't the first time, Almar. This was this 84 event was just an accumulation of an aggregate of many other events. It was building to this. My mum had already thrown him out, but I remember that time when she threw him out when we were, in 78, 79 or whatever it was, she had the relatives come around and say, you need to take him back. And my mum would say, well, he's not giving me any money to pay the bills to feed the kids. At that point, I remember we had to get the tokens to get free lunches at school because my mum didn't have any money. In fact, she couldn't. She had 4 kids. How could she work? No child. So she had child support, and then we had these, and we had luckily nice neighbours and some nice uncles. So my uncles used to come and leave, £30 on the table, not to, when my mum wasn't looking, because my mum was proud and she didn't want to take the money. So he would give it to us and say, give this to your mum later, so she could buy groceries for us. So because my dad's irresponsibility, my dad was always very poor and giving my mum an allowance. I don't know how he thought my mum was going to magic up
the money to
cook the food. My mum was, scrimping and being very efficient with cash. Saving what she could, being, sacrificing herself.
But how? Tell me with this, because I mean they are they are Muslims, and you were born as a Muslim. And you are
by definition Muslim.
You're by definition a Muslim. And what role did that play in the family? How was that?
At that age, at a very young age, between the age of 0 to 10 for me and my sisters as well, very little. We knew we were Muslims. We knew some Arabic prayers, but it wasn't drilled down to us this. We were told something by our mum. We understood. My mum had some Islamic things at home, some pictures, some things on the wall. So it was clear that and they were stuck on the wall. It was framed, pictures of Mecca and things like that. So we knew that, but there was at that point I didn't know about the namaz, is the prayer that you do, the one that happens 5 times per day. When you hear the guy calling in Middle Eastern countries, and you hear this guy calling from the minaret, which is now a speaker. But so it didn't really appear till I was, the age of 10, and that's when we were sent. When we moved to Glasgow, where there was the facility or the infrastructure, there was some Quranic classes or Islamic classes. So they moved, and partly the reason to move is maybe partly due to they could provide that for their kids, because they wanted their kids to know, or us, me and my sisters, to have read the Quran and understand Islam. And in fact, it is part of the one of the duties of the parent to ensure their children have read the Quran and know the definitely read the Quran, and then also know what they call the prayers, the 5 prayers which are called namaz.
So basically, you say the first 10 years or so, it's not really.
It's there,
but it's not really affecting you somehow.
No, we would celebrate Christmas and Easter and these things, and I went to school on Fridays. We would go to the church, and there would be assembly, or in the school there would be Christmas songs. I was in the Christmas play, as one of the 3 kings or whatever, or a shepherd or a sheep, or So, and my parents didn't. They came to the place. They didn't go to the school and say, "Hey, my kids are Muslim. Don't don't. Why are you teaching them about Christianity?"
They allowed you to assimilate in this way.
Which I'm very thankful for.
But was that the common? I mean, if you would look around, other
more
Muslim
or less,
families,
it would be very exceptional. Occasionally, we'd meet a other Pakistani friend or a distant cousin, and they would say, "My dad went to the school to tell them." You're like, "That's a bit weird."
Because that's one of the. I mean, currently, if I look at let's say the discussion in at least in the Nordic societies, because I follow that discussion. I mean, one of the main argumentation for let's say stricter immigration policies, for example, into Scandinavia, has been that the people who are coming are not willing to assimilate somehow. Here we are talking about the 70s, 80s, and your 70s. Parents really young when they come there, and I don't know it.
A difficult one. I mean,
and you say that it was norm around.
I mean, if I looked around my first cousins, same situation. Other families, other Pakistani families not related to us, same situation, more or less. There was probably the odd one here and there. But no, I don't. And there is that criticism, but I would say the counter criticism or counter argument I would make assimilation is not a one-way street.
Mm.
There needs to be a two-way street.
Mm.
The host country needs to, if they are going to take you in and allow that to happen because they want cheap labor force, they need to provide the facilities to allow that assimilation. They need to reach out, you know, because there's an element of prejudice when you are when you're different looking, and that's for everyone, whether you have glasses, big nose, or ginger hair.
I mean, I felt that prejudice when I went to China.
Maybe they didn't like your tattoos because you look like Ragnar Lothbrok from Vikings.
Oh, there you did. No, I mean, I honestly, I was the only white guy in that place, you know, and I could feel it.
Yeah, they're different, yeah.
But like, if you, I think with this assimilation, it has a lot to do with the size of the host community.
Yeah, I've seen those criticisms specifically about Scandinavian countries and specifically about Sweden and Malmo and bits of, say, Denmark, where it's quite anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant kind of feeling or underlying tones you hear from politicians and just what you read. So I don't know. I don't know why they haven't assimilated so well. But the one thing I heard about Sweden's is, and they keep because there's, say, an Arab type community there. Bosnians, Arabs have moved. Look at Ibrahimovic, the football player, from Bosnia. You know, he went to try to play for Bosnia. They said no, so he decided to play for Sweden. And look how successful he is in a football. I forget his personality. It's a different discussion.
I love his personality.
Oh, he's a dick.
I fucking love him.
I don't.
But okay, so this whole assimilation is.
But no. Let me finish the point. The point is, in Sweden, I understand the white Swedes are middle to upper class, live in their nice communities, and the cheaper, which you can imagine immigrants can only afford, they stay in these housing estates, and they don't. There's not so much cross. I'm not saying that is the reason, but that is one. You could imagine that you're kept over there, you're kept over here. You do the cheap jobs, you sweep the streets, you pick up our litter, you clean the bathrooms,
and then live over there at the corner.
You live in the place at the edge of town, which hasn't got it's got the ugly looking housing or not so nice housing environment, less facilities, no nice, whatever, you know. So
we did this.
I don't know. I don't know the reason why it's.
Yeah, we've done this in Iceland also with our own people. We built neighborhoods for low income young families with kids, and 10 years after those houses were built, you had a lot of social problems in that area.
Good. Make a very good point. Same in the UK. You have post-war. Let's just look at the UK post-war. Population boom, baby boomers, whatever. And there's a need for housing, so there's cheap housing made, and those areas, some of them are predominantly white. They have huge problems too. So you can't really. So if you look at it from that point of view,
it's not about race.
It's not about race. No. But you know what is? It's always easy to blame the coloured people. Because it's Western Europe was at one point predominantly white. You have this influx of different looking people who look different, dress different, speak different, maybe even smell different because of the cook with different types of food. Have different customs. And don't speak your language, which is understandable. I'm not excusing it, but you can see why these and I'm saying that the assimilation is a two-way street. So it's not all one way. You can only go so far one way, but if the door is closed in your face, then how can you assimilate? So
the system has to be ready to help you with that.
Yeah, okay. And I don't know how to solve this. I don't have all the answers, but I'm very kind of passionate and opinionated about immigrants and refugees and Pakistanis and stuff in Scotland. I don't tolerate certain comments easily, and I'm not
like what?
I'm not slow, to back down on these points. Like what? Like the thing we just make. We picked on this point about immigration, about assimilation. I agree. Look, I assimilated. I look at some of my younger cousins or whatever, and I think they've got a bit of a chip on their shoulder, like the world owes them something. And, when I look at my people around me, not only people like my background, just generally I'm working class, part of Scotland, people, they don't have lots of cash. Everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's in the same boat. Whether it be Scottish, Chinese, whatever, doesn't matter. We're all working. We're from working class background or whatever, and we're all struggling. We're all trying our best. So you need to make a bit of effort. Why should it be just given to you? You're not bought. It's not a silver spoon in our mouth. So just go and take it. Don't let it hold you back. Yeah, of course there'll be some prejudices and racism, but unfortunately we just have to face it. And but doesn't mean don't call it out. Doesn't mean that you don't have to be against it. This is what I mean. I'm not slow on these. I keep getting it wrong. I won't back down on these things. I don't back down easily. When I see comments on social media and people pick me up on these things, I'm like, no, I'm not taking this from you. There's a comment, and I'm especially not taking it from you because you don't know what it was like. I'm not saying that they were dragging me in the streets and hanging me from a tree, with a noose around my neck.
My Iranian friend was called Sand Nigger in California.
Yeah,
and
I've been called all the words under the word. It first started. They used to even get us mixed up. They used to say you're Chinese, and I mean, like, what? Not Chinese. No, that like, do I look Chinese to you? They'd make a song about Chinese people, but directed at me. It's like, okay, as a kid, you're like, well, you get, you would be uncomfortable because people are picking on you. But the same way that unfortunately the kid that was overweight, we call him the fat kid, got picked on. Same with the guy who wore glasses, who had big nose, got picked on. There was something, kids, kid.
We find some weakness and then we play on that.
Yeah, exactly. But it's fine when it's kids. Yeah, that's like, but the thing is with adults, that's when you got to think. And when and now if someone ever say, or not that ever, rarely anything happens like this. Occasionally in a situation, but people don't say it to your face. They might, the social media allows them to hide behind something. They might say something. And I used to think, is that the best you can do? You can insult my color?
Yeah, which is really stupid because it says nothing about the person.
It says more about you than it says about
nothing
me.
About you.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I would call you an asshole or something. It's much more appropriate.
All of Prague would call me that. So join the queue.
Anyway, so we're talking about. Your dad is a bit of a entrepreneur. Doesn't always go well.
Doesn't always go well.
And you were very involved in all of his. I mean, you were helping out. You were.
So I was this, the person sitting on his shoulder saying, "Dad, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why don't you do this? Why don't you pay your bills on time?"
So
and he would just ignore me.
So you're very responsible as a young kid.
Probably, yes. Yeah, probably. Yeah. I would worry about the fact if the electricity bill hadn't been paid. And I would be about, 12, 10, 12. I'd be asking, is the bill being paid? Because the electricity would be cut off. And for 6 hours one day, we would have no electricity. Because not that we probably didn't have the money, it's just that my dad, sometimes we didn't have the money, that was clear.
Why didn't your mom take this role?
She did. My mom was there as well, but my dad would just ignore her.
But
he wasn't around, he'd be away working. I mean, my dad was someone who wasn't around the house a lot.
But he listened to you?
No.
But how, and so you, because a lot of people say...
He didn't listen to anyone, to my knowledge. I don't know anyone that got... His brothers would tell him to do this, but he didn't listen to it. Not visibly that I saw. I mean, it changed as he got older, and my relationship with my dad got a lot better. Physically, we would even hug. It was like, wow, he's hugging me.
That's possible.
It
comes with that feature.
He was like proud of me, My son is a chartered surveyor. I was like, bloody hell, But he never ever took me to a football match. Never played with me much. I remember once he played football with me once. It was like, wow, Dad's playing football with us in the front of the house. This is unusual.
So there was not a lot of love in the house.
From Mum, there was. From Dad, from distantly, and he was working a lot, so. You can't play football with your kids if you're doing, 13-hour day, and then you're tired when you come home. The last thing you want is, a kid pestering you. I know what that's like, and he was standing on his feet for 13, 14 hours and driving between different businesses, shops, a young guy still in his early 20s, I think you're still maturing at that. You're just still finding yourself, the things you liked to do when you were 20 are not 22 are not what you do when you're 52, 42, everybody knows that.
And then, And you did good at school. I mean, you were doing fine.
Yeah, no, I was. Yeah, I was. I did well at school. Yeah, I was generally. I wasn't top of the class, but I was, in the top one.
Because you were responsible.
No, I was meant to be a joke. It's a famous quote from Brian Clough.
Uh-huh.
He said, they asked him, "Are you the best manager in England?" In England, he said, "I'm not sure, but I think I'm in the top one."
In the top one, yeah.
In the top one.
I thought you said, I'm one of the top ones.
No, I'm not one of those. My Scottish accent. No. But so I did good. Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, I was generally when I was competitive, I wanted to do good as well. I wanted to be top in maths and English. Not that I was very good at English, but you know what I mean. I wanted to be. We'd have these tests at the end of the year. I wanted to, and I generally it was on first or second or third in the class. I was in this kind of. So I was in. So.
And what about teenage years? I mean, like, because you say that like the religion and that stuff isn't really. It's there, but it's not super visible until you're like 10, 11 or something. Yeah. I mean, that changed.
Yeah, because so it changed around about that time, like you said. We moved to a bigger place, Glasgow, where there was a Quranic school. So I go to school. School finished 3:30 or something, I think. 4 o'clock or 4:30 or whatever it was. I think it was 4:30. Yeah. We went to the Quranic school to learn the Quran, to read Arabic. So you read Arabic and then you learned to read the Quran and you were taught the namaz. So you went to a class in a house, an apartment, which some guy had converted, and so he was like the teacher. One side of the room would be the guys. We'd sit together on the floor. On the side, the girls would keep the scarves on. They would be, and we sometimes had a little hat. They would be on the other side, and we were taught by the imam how to read the Quran. Yeah, so that's
and then I mean, so what happens when you were 12 and you get horny and you want to start drinking and all that stuff? I mean,
12. It must be that's what happens in Iceland. It doesn't happen when you're 12 and it's when you're 14, 15. I think
maybe the environment in Scotland doesn't stimulate in the same way as it does in Iceland.
Or maybe Icelandic men are more horny.
I don't know, but I mean, but what happens when
you're a teenager?
Yeah, when you get into this teenage.
Oh, and yeah, so I think you're asking what happens when girls appear on the scene, or boys, depending on your persuasion. Difficult one. You just kind of hide it. You can't be open and at home because you're not meant to have girlfriends
until you find the wife.
Pretty much,
yeah.
Yeah. So.
But in your case, for example, your parents would never have expected to choose the wife for you. You would never have been a subject of an arranged marriage.
Well, this comes in my 20s, but at that age, if you go back to the age of so what was inferred or what was discussed around the house, that one day I will get married, and I will bring my wife home, and she will look after my parents. And it wasn't like it would be arranged. I don't remember that. I was like, there'll be someone that we know and someone that you like. They can be from Scotland. Will be someone from Scotland with similar background to you. Born in Scotland. It's not that you have to marry someone from. Then it would be from Pakistan. Back from the home country in inverted commas, which many people did. Relatives, friends. They would get a wife. They would marry, go to Pakistan, find a wife through network. Friends of friends, family, this and that. Anyway, so for me, it was that will happen when you're in your 20s, when you've got a job and you're able to support, you're financially liquid or stable to be able to, provide for your wife. So at the ages of teenage years, it was just don't have girlfriends, don't drink, but teenage boys.
And what did you do? Did you have girlfriend and drink?
Eventually, yes. I did, yeah. And I had girlfriends. Did I like girls? Yeah, I did. Did I date girls? Yes, I did. Like any teenager did.
And you had to hide it.
Yeah, I had to hide it. Yeah, girlfriends don't phone me at home. Then the mobiles didn't exist then. Don't call me. Don't come around to knock on the door. If you're gonna meet, I'll meet you, and we'll meet at the school or we'll meet in the park, and
I saw.
But but that happened when I was more like 17. When I was 14, 15, I was just playing football, cricket. I was all about just doing sports, being outside, just playing with my friends. Yeah, girls were, they were okay. They maybe liked you. They was maybe interested, but it wasn't the main focus. This really happened for me and everyone's different. It's really happened, really kind of went off when I was 15 onwards, 15, 16. And then after that, then this is when it became, how do you say, more prevalent in my life. I wasn't that bothered about it then. I was still young, when I was that age, So for maybe in Iceland it's different, but in Scotland.
But how was it like? Because I saw a photo of you on Facebook where you had like a nice nest on your head, and so I think you have been really popular with the girls.
But that wasn't a good photograph. I don't know how that would make me popular. I don't know if I was popular with the girls. That's not for me.
No, but how was it to explain to your girlfriend that she can't call?
Yeah, well, that was it. Look, if we're going to date, you're not. I can't be seen with you too publicly, other than friends, and we can just say we were a group of friends from school. So I'm not going to walk down the street with you holding your hand, and you're not coming to my house, and you're not phoning me, or not that you're not. But it's going to cause me problems, and my parents are going to give me a really hard time if they think I'm not out with my friend Davey or Jimmy or whoever.
Who didn't exist.
Who did exist? Yeah. Well, you just tell them, look, Davey, look, tonight I'm with you, okay? We're playing football or we're going to the cinema, but you'd be out with some, meeting some girl. Or you'd be with Davey and you'd be out meeting some girls. Or you'd be with a bunch of people,
But what would have happened if okay, so
just
you
get a hard time, yeah. It was just like, you shouldn't be doing this, but you're terrible, and it's the guilt, and I'll be like, oh, bloody hell.
But how if this is how it was towards you, because usually the male in the Muslim family, the male son is kind of carried often very highly or thought of highly.
Yeah.
And I quote again, my Iranian friend was called the golden dick in his home. He was
really?
He's
not by his parents though.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, the golden dick, because he is the one who carries on the legacy of the family.
But they didn't use that word. Maybe.
Yeah, they used that word. Yeah.
I don't think so. Maybe he's just kind of translating it in a way that you would understand. They would probably call him the golden child, but in the sense.
Oh, golden dick. He has told me many times. Anyway, so how was it for your sisters then? In this case,
in terms of freedom and going out and hanging around in parks or corners, going to cinema, a lot stricter. Unfortunately for my sisters, because the honor of the family is held through the daughters, and you can't have your daughters, I don't know, out not drinking, or it doesn't matter, out seeing with boys, because this thing about purity. When they get married, they should be virgins and stuff like that, and they shouldn't have been with other men. So and culturally, you can imagine, not even in the countries which my parents came from, but even in Western Europe at some point, and even till recently, men's control over women or opinion of women. Only now are we trying to see a little bit of a catch up in terms of how women are portrayed. But even until recently, women aren't given the same treatment as men. They are discriminated against, is the point I'm saying. So, and that was maybe even more pronounced in my culture, because it still is, the religion is still, and not the only religion. So I'm not picking on Islam in this respect. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it's kind of, from the outside, it kind of looks, and from the Western European perspective, it looks very backward. And because of maybe how the media portrays it, because they're not all like that,
No.
Look at my mum. She worked. She was a business. She ran her own business. She was, like a well-known person, and not well-known, but she was an active person in her community. So she wasn't kept back by my father, and maybe that's good, because it kind of then filtered down to people like me. But in terms of my sisters, which was the question you asked, they didn't have the same freedoms I had, and it annoyed them because I was like the golden boy, and I was the only son. Of three girls and one boy, so there was like, the boy. So I always got liberties that my sisters would never get. Going away on a holiday when I was 18, 19, 20, going off to Greece, going off to America with my friends or whatever.
And they could never have done
No,
these
they
things.
couldn't have done that. No.
But it must be difficult, listening to you, like, because one thing is if the family would have lived back home in Pakistan,
yes,
where the whole environment is
Exactly.
like this, and it's just quite normal.
yes,
But it must be difficult when, your next door neighbor, a girl, can go, I don't know, to a concert with a guy, and hang out in the park and even kiss him, and your sister cannot.
No, you're right. So it's difficult. Yes. I can't say anything else to that.
But I guess like in your case, because I don't know, this must have left its mark on you somehow. Do you know what I mean? Because it's
because you live a double life. So me, it was
Yeah.
easier. I could go out. There was no restrictions. Where you're going, when you're coming back. You know who you're going to be
yeah,
with.
as long as the life was good enough. That you
More
were
or
Davey.
less, yeah.
You were Davey.
I was with Davey or whoever I was with. You
Yeah.
know, Michael or Johnny.
Yeah.
But my sisters, they were questioned, like, where are you going? When you're coming back? Why are you wearing this? By my parents, who were pretty, liberal.
That's the thing. That's the contrast in this.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually.
So the question was, how did this leave a mark on you? Yeah, you just led a double life. It was like Jekyll and Hyde. Let's put it like that. You the persona at home, your persona or personality at home, and how you portrayed yourself was different than it was to the outside world or to your friends. As far as your parents were going, you weren't going out discos and clubbing and hanging around with girls, but with your friends, you were just another part of the gang. And with your girlfriend, it was, okay, I can't call you at home. I'm not going to go on a holiday with you. Okay, you never went on holiday much with a girl when you were 16, 17.
Yeah, you don't
know what I mean? But,
no.
we're not going to be seen together too much. Yeah, we can go to the school disco. Yeah, we can go to the cinema. But we need to, be careful. We're not going to be holding hands too much in the street, but we will occasionally. But yeah, it was more like, you can't call me at home. You can't come to my house and visit my parents and talk to my mom and dad. And so, but I can go to your parents, and your parents open the door, feed me, treat me like one of their own.
But did it feel wrong to you? Did you feel that there was injustice on this towards you? Or, because
yeah, well, probably inside there was a bit of a battle, but I just kind of accepted that's what it was.
Yeah, but it's interesting because I guess you never imagined that I can only marry a Muslim girl, or I'm only gonna marry someone who is approved.
Well, good question, because I didn't think that. I just thought, well, you know what? I'll just listen to this. I'm only 16, 17. I'm not going to get married. Lucky my parents weren't that crazy, because I knew other parents had got their kids married off at 18, 19 or whatever. And my cousins, for example, or friends or other people you heard of. But, it was pretty clear that I myself wanted to go to do further education after high school, that I didn't want to leave at 16 and start a job, and which probably for me would have been in the family business. Because, we recovered, my father recovered, he even found God and became religious, which he wasn't up until the year of 85 or something, 1985, I should say. So, so my internal view, or my view, was that, let them say that. And they didn't talk about it all the time.
Yeah, but what was your end game?
What, in what sense?
What, at some point, you're not 16 anymore. You're going to be, I don't know, 25 or something, and you're going to meet maybe someone who you find this interesting and special.
Yeah. What was I didn't think about the end game, Almar. I just thought, I'll just ride the waves. Let's see what happens.
Play along.
Just, take it as it comes, kind of thing. I'm even to this day, I'm a bit like that. I don't plan too far ahead.
But it's interesting because, one thing is, if this is your reality, when you live in a reality that is only like that, and then I think it must be difficult when
I know what you mean. There's a dichotomy of this. The kind of, you couldn't do the things your friends were doing. You had to, there was some reservation, they were doing other things, drinking, for example, alcohol, and you couldn't come home drunk. There was absolutely no chance. And I've never been a big drinker. I mean, I'd occasionally have the odd beer, and experiment a little bit, but
what would happen? Because you said
I would just get in trouble. Yeah, they would just get it in the ear.
What does that mean? I mean, no food or
no, I'd just get it in the neck. Then be questioned every step of the way. What are you doing? Where are you going?
So you would be put under more surveillance.
Oh yeah. So to avoid that, but there's many times I would just sneak out the window at night, just climb out my window and where we lived in Stirling, and just drop down and then go out. And sometimes I'd even take my dad's car without him knowing about it and go and meet my friends. Come back at 3 a.m. and climb back up. There'd be times when I'd be hiding by. It was one time I remember I came home and it was I'd been out partying. I came home at 6 a.m. After a good night's party, and my dad was going to work, and I just managed to park the other car or his car because I had the spare keys, and he was coming down the steps. So I had to hide that behind another car till he took that car away before I could get out from behind the car and go in the door. You know, it was a bit. So it was this kind of teenage years, you know, they did this crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in some way, you know, I can connect to it.
I know what you're getting,
but I never really. It never. Obviously, my parents didn't want me to drink when I was 12 or 13, but they were also the ones that bought me my first 6-pack of beer when I was 16. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it didn't really matter what kind of girls I brought home. You know, my mom would measure the shoe sizes to see if it was the same girl as last weekend or whatever, you know, but...
You try to say you brought a lot of girls home?
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
But I know what you're getting at. Yeah, it was a strange, like, you were just hiding things. So you were not... So what... I mean, if you want to take this to a very kind of, I don't know... psychological level, then you were masking, you were hiding, you were pretending to be something that you're not. You couldn't be authentic. That's the word I'm looking.
Yeah, and I'm very curious about it. I mean, not that we need to dive into that any deeper here, but it just must be challenging when you're also kind of discovering yourself as a teenager. But so you go to university, you take that real estate, this land survey,
land economics.
Yeah, like, and then the certified surveyor degree.
Yep.
Why real estate? Or, you know, was there, because I think you told me that you wanted a really like down to earth, boring business so that it couldn't go bankrupt or whatever, you know?
Well, yeah, no, actually before, I mean, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Again, kind of ties into, I don't plan too far ahead. So people say, well, what do you want to be? And of course I wanted to be a pilot or a football player when I was younger, and realized I wasn't that good at football compared to the other guys. So I was like, well, that's not going to happen. And then my mum had health problems most of her life with her eyes. So and that obviously was probably the push that I'm going to go into the profession of being an optician. But then it didn't quite work out. I got the grades to get in. So you had to do, you did your grades at school and you had to get certain level to get into certain university degree. So I got a conditional offer to do this, what is called a course called ophthalmic optics in Glasgow, which was at that we lived in Stirling, which is like 40 miles north, so like 60 kilometers north of Glasgow. At that point, so we lived in this beautiful town called Stirling, with a huge castle, by the way, and it didn't work out. Something with the application, they actually didn't turn. They asked me for an interview. I went to the interview, and the guy who was meant to interview me, who was the head of the department, he didn't turn up for the interview. So I went to Spain, arrived 2-3 hours waiting for him. It was in the summer. It was the summer months, and I thought, well, the guy can't even bother to. I'm not going to go to this course. It was really like that. And at the same time, I think my mum had her younger brother, her half brother. He was an engineer. He'd been studying engineering, civil engineering, and he was like one of the first guys. And he had a big influence on me from my uncle, actually, just generally football, music, university. I saw him go to university, so it's that kind of thing. If you have someone to look up to, so my mum's brother, her brother, not because she has two brothers, but the older of the two, he did quite well. He was quite smart. He was good at sports. I basically followed his. I used to look up to him. He was like an idol of mine. I wasn't that much older than me, maybe 5 years older than me. So we used to even hang around together, play football. He used to take me out occasionally to the clubs when I was 17, when I was below age. But anyway, so he had done a degree in civil engineering. He mentioned another course at the same university, or it was actually a college at that point. It doesn't matter. It's too technical. So he mentioned another course. He said, look, this is a good course. Look into this, because I asked his advice. So I was, applying for engineering courses, engineering and law and things like this. And this one had a very good reputation in Britain, not even in Scotland. Many well-known, not well-known. It was like a rugby player who went there, but that's by the by. But there was a good chance of getting a job, and that was obviously important. You do a degree, get a job. You know, you're put down the channel.
You're set for life.
You know, you got to do a degree where you can get a job. And or my parents want me to be a doctor, obviously, because I'm Pakistani by background, but I didn't have the grades. You know, you have to be a straight A student to get into medicine. You know, and it's hard. So I was like, I didn't even want to be a doctor. You know, but they were fine. So my options were go to university or run the shop. And even when I finished my degree, I could still run the shop, or I could go and get a job. And I would make more money probably running the shop, but it's bloody hard work. And I never.
And you would have to deal with your dad.
And I'd have to deal with my dad, and have to deal with customers, and I'd be on my feet 12 hours a day, and blah blah blah. And I'd be with my parents. I was like, no way, time to escape. And so this university was far enough from home, and I went there in 1989, I think it was, to start this land economics degree.
And that kind of. Like, and then you go on that field trip here in 93.
93, yeah. It was a great field trip.
And then you come here permanently in 96. 97, sorry. And you had met your wife already then, or you met her when you came here?
I met her in 90s. Well, we got together in 98. But I did meet her in 97, but I didn't meet her in 93. No. She's 4 years younger than me, but... So we came in 93 on a field trip for like 2-3 days. I was like, wow, you know, we were seeing markets which are opening up. We visited, I mean, most of these buildings didn't, you know, these modern buildings, they didn't exist. There was one office building of any
Prague,
note. Yeah. There was a couple smaller refurbished ones, and our university lecturers had agreed for us to meet certain there was British companies had come because of the tradition of surveying and real estate advisory. Most of they saw the opportunity of these open markets, so they would send someone over from the UK, predominantly, you know, some guy from one of the offices would put their hand up and say, I'm interested to work in Czech Republic, because by 93 it was Czech Republic. The Velvet Divorce had happened with Slovakia, so there was offices opened by British firms, even one Scottish firm actually, one that I didn't work at the time when I moved here. But there was even a Scottish company here called Rydens. So it was DTZ, the one I did come to work for. We're here in 93. So we came on this field trip. We met these real estate people. We met the local city planner. I think Jan Castle was his name. Or not planner, actually. He was the mayor of Prague 1, or the mayor even of Prague. Probably the mayor of Prague. So we met these people. We were taken around, and we had a minibus, because we came on a bus all the way from Scotland. So we got a ferry from the north of England overnight, and we went to Rotterdam, and then from Rotterdam we made our way all the way to Prague over a couple of days via Berlin, Dresden, and came here, and we had this tour, and it was opening, and Prague was just like, beautiful. It was just like a step back in time, and you can imagine there was very few tourists here. There was very few shops. Only Benetton was on Napshikope. Misselbeck didn't exist. Palladium didn't exist. Most of these office buildings didn't exist. In 93, it just smelt differently.
And was that when did you know then that you wanted to come here again, or you know?
It probably. I don't know. I don't think so, but without a doubt, it's put a seed in my head, planted a seed, and it was the fact that there was an opportunity to work in another country, take your profession and go abroad, and so I kind of at some point when I was in Scotland, I thought the world is bigger, right? And by the way, we went to Berlin, Dresden, Poland even. We went to Stettin one time. The year before we'd been in Berlin as well. Not only 93, but 92, our university were very good with these trips. And it was paid for by the university. They took us to Berlin, and we went to Poland for half a day, to Stettin. There was like a shipbuilding town, city, right on the border with Germany. So and it was like very basic, I remember, like nothing in the department store. We couldn't spend the money that we had switched into zlotys probably from Deutschmark at that point. So anyway, to get back, so 93 I'm here with the 18 other students, most of them guys, and we're like out, we do the tour through the day, and then we go out and we're drinking and Rados had just opened, and we're trying to meet Czech girls. And trying to talk to them and buy them drinks, and we were only here 2 nights, so there wasn't too much. We went out, but the city itself, let's talk about the experience. It was just, wow, this is just different. Trabants, more Trabants, the smoke, the smell of the diesel or whatever, the oil, the two-stroke engines, the greyness of Prague. You could just see it just needed to be cleaned a little bit, and it was starting to have Old Town Square, and we just thought, wow, this is fairyland. And then you remember the NXS video that was shot here. And the Tom Cruise video movie, Mission Impossible, when he ran across the Old Town Square. And you're like, yeah, I think it was out around about that same time. Or maybe probably after, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, it was after probably.
But 19. Then, so you came here.
So let's
3 years.
Sorry to ramble on.
Mr. Tom Cruise.
Not me.
You went back. You said that when we took the photo, though.
No.
Brad Pitt.
No. I said the picture with why we worried about this photograph. It's not as if we are Tom Cruise, We're not.
You were talking about yourself.
I was talking about, of course. You are one handsome man, ex-model. Anyway, yeah. So go back 93, finish my degree, start my career in the UK, working in England and Scotland, and then have this kind of wanderlust or bug to try something different. And what it kind of reminds me a little bit of is like my grandparents again. They, it's kind of like they moved from a country to a different country. Now, at that time in 97, when I was moving here, I was not thinking but then in reflection, I think I was an immigrant child over there. My grandparents had moved to Scotland. So my parents as well. My parents had moved to Scotland. They were in their teenage years. And then I did the same. I moved away. But I moved away probably for reasons of getting away and getting freedom from
running away so that you could actually start living the life that
you
wanted.
Try to be a bit more honest to yourself. But even those words weren't even in my head at the time. For me,
honest to yourself.
Yeah. It was, for me, it was just about enjoying life, having a new experience, and working in a new market. It was just it was just different. It was just something different, and it seemed like a nice city to come and live in. The real estate market was establishing. It was just like, it seems like it wasn't even think this would be a great career move, because I thought I'll do it for 2 to 3 years and then I'll go back to Scotland.
Yeah.
That was the original plan. Because when I sat my parents down in 97 in May, because I came in May on a week's holiday to see a friend, and I asked her, does she know any companies looking? And she said, speak to DTZ. I met the guy who happened to be Scottish, who was in charge. We met, he offered me the job. He was looking for someone like me. The other guy had left, blah, blah, blah. And came back, resigned in a job that I hadn't been in very long, 7 months. And they were like, really? You just joined us? You're leaving again? I said, well, I have this opportunity. Sat my parents down at some point, said, look, I'm going to go to Czech Republic. I want to go there. And they're like, no, don't go. My mum's like, where is this Czechoslovakia place? You're still calling it. Well, fair enough. Everyone called, even some people today call it Czechoslovakia. So forget in 97 when my mum called. She's like, I don't know where this place is. My mum's only ever been in Scotland, England, or Pakistan. She's never been Spain or Greece or anywhere else. She's only she's just no idea. Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia. I mean, she had been here after I moved here, but before that, I was like, that's somewhere over there where Russia is. It's like communists, and like, why do you want to go there? I was like, it's an opportunity. I explained it to them. It's an opportunity, and they weren't very happy about me coming here. But I went anyway. I thought, I'll go, and I'll be said to Mum, look, I'll be back every 3-4 months to see you. So I came in 97, thinking I'll be here for 2-3 years and I'll go back.
And you meet your future wife, or then to become wife.
Yeah.
She's not Muslim.
No, she's Czech. So not much
Atheist,
religion. Yeah. Agnostic, believes in something, but not practicing any religion. No. And also from some element of Jewish ancestry in her side, which is interesting as well, which is fine. No problem with that. But the kind of Muslim Jewish thing.
Yeah, it has not been. It's like water and oil.
Yeah, a little bit, unfortunately.
But how was that? Because I mean, you could not. Would you have met a woman like her in Scotland?
In what sense?
With the family pressure, or the expectation?
It could have happened. Yeah, I mean, look, when I moved here, I wasn't looking for a wife or anything.
No, but things happen.
Things happen. I was, how old was 25, 26. I was 26 when I moved here. So I was just here for experience, career experience, and just life experience. It's feasible that if I'd stayed in Scotland, I could have made a, say, white Scottish girl or even not white Scottish girl and married them of my own choice. It's very possible. I didn't know because I didn't stay in Scotland to find out. But the one interesting or one relevant fact is, around about that time, my mom had started to look for, around about 96, 97, my mom started to talk more about me getting married. And there was even a couple of introductions with girls who'd been born in Scotland like me. There was never any, I was always sure I was never going to marry a girl from my mum and dad's country who was born in Pakistan, raised in Pakistan.
But now, you could never say this straight out.
No, I could say that. No, my mum and dad were fine about that. They were like, yeah, you need to probably marry someone with similar background. Now, my parents were in that way open-minded and thought, no, it would be too much of a, he's too different. He's not Pakistani. He's Scottish, really. I mean, just listen to my voice, for God's sake. So just not even my voice, but how I think. I'm a product of my environment, and my parents, fortunately for me, were understanding to that fact. Even though it wasn't discussed, they all said, no, you don't need to marry someone from Pakistan. Even though your friend's brother did and your second cousin did, you don't need to do that. You just need to marry a good Muslim girl.
Yeah, but it had to be a Muslim.
First thing Muslim, second thing preferably Pakistani. So she could be Muslim Kenyan or Muslim Indian. But I'm pretty sure if I brought back a Muslim Nigerian, they wouldn't have been that happy because in themselves they had their own prejudices. So let's call it as it is. It should have been Muslim Pakistani of some reputable family, but the girl had some good, no reputation. Wasn't known for going to be a fun girl. So it was really hypocrite. So your son could do this, and they kind of knew that because I was like any other young guy, they were not naive. My mum knew roughly, but she knew I just had to go out and enjoy myself, and it would just kind of filter out of my body. I would, get bored of, partying, but let me get it out my system type of thing. Probably that's how she thought of it. And he'll settle down and he'll marry that girl. And it wasn't even a case of you have to marry her and bring her home and live with us. My mum would joke about that, knowing it would wind me up. But it was more like just marry someone who's Muslim and Pakistani so we can keep the honor in the society that we live in. So your aunties and uncles won't talk about us, or the wider society, Pakistani community won't talk about us in a bad way. Like, look at your son, he's married some white girl, Scottish girl.
Yeah, but that's what you did. You married the white Czech girl.
Yes.
And how did you bring that news to your family?
I told them that's what I was going to do, and they weren't happy about it.
But how were they not happy about it? I mean, did they protest it, or did they?
No, I mean, so I meet my wife Sharka in 1998. We start dating, so we're going out together. Eventually, even Sharka moves in with me.
And your parents knew about her?
No, they didn't know. When my mom came to Prague. I think Shark and I weren't living together at that point. I had a flatmate. Came to Prague. We had a dinner with some people, and I invited Sharka to that dinner. So it was my friends and Sharka, who was the only girl there. There wasn't many friends. There was maybe me, one Scottish friend who lived here. My sister had come over. Sharka was there. And we just said it was a friend of Kenny's, the other guy who was living here. And later on, when I did eventually tell my mom, she knew it was that girl from the restaurant. We went to an Indian restaurant as well. Funny enough, it was one on Pajishka back then, Jewel of India. I remember it was a good one. We went there for dinner. What year was I can't remember. It was probably 2003 or something like that. My mum was here.
So you've been dating
Shaka
for 5 years before your mom meets her.
Unbeknown to my mum. So it was May 2000. Yeah, my mum met her 4 years in or something. I can't remember the year, but it was something 2002 or something. My mum had been visiting me with my sister, and my niece and nephew were here as well. And they came for a week or 5 days, I don't know. But anyway, so we had this dinner and in the restaurant, and so I just wanted Sharka to see what my mum was like. And so Sharka came to, but we didn't kiss or hug or anything at the dinner. We didn't introduce her as my girlfriend. My sister knew, but my mum didn't. So then in 2004, I think early 2004 or late 2003, I tell my parents, look, I'm not going to do the traditional thing. I met a girl. I want to marry her. Because there was a lot of questions. When are you going to get married? You should come home, or even get married and move your wife out there. And we found this nice girl for you, and you should meet her. I was like, oh, God.
We can mail her to you.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Or send you a photograph. Come over and have a coffee with her. You know, it's like, no, I'm not so sure about that. So I just came, and Sharka was saying, look, what's happening? We are going out together now for 5 years. And it's like, what's the future? I'm not hanging around here waiting for you to make a decision. And this reminded me of a girl I dated before I moved from Prague. And this other girl, the Scottish girl, she left me because I couldn't make a commitment, yeah. And the girl at the time said to me, look, be open, but don't do it for me, she said. Do it for yourself, because look at you, it's tearing you apart. She was very wise of her to say that. So she split with me because she's like, well, I'm not hanging around waiting for this idiot to make up his mind, and he's, can't take me home, and well, he can come over to our house and whatever and meet the family. I can't, and he's not. She probably thought, well, there's not much future, but maybe there was other reasons. Maybe she didn't like my jokes.
But Sharka liked you. She was willing to hang in there.
Yeah, Sharka, liked me, and she was willing to hang in there. Yeah, she was. Yeah, credit to her. Well,
and so, what did your parents say when you told them?
All the usual things. Oh, it won't work. Not only then my mum made this comment. Not only are you not marrying a Pakistani girl from Scotland, but you're marrying someone from Czechoslovakia. At least if you're going to marry non-Pakistani Scottish, marry a white Scottish girl, please. Don't marry someone from some former Eastern Bloc country, from Czech Republic, where we visited once. And that girl from the dinner, oh, she's not good enough for you. And it's like, oh, how do you know her, mum? Whatever. She would just want me to not do it, and then would get my my sisters to speak to me, get my auntie to speak to me, get my uncle to speak to me, try to talk me out of it. Say, I'm not. If you do this, I'm not going to talk to you again. So and then I brought Sharka over. So I didn't tell my parents I wanted to marry Sharka face to face. I told them by phone. And then I said, look, I'm coming over with Sharka. So in early 2004, Sharka and I make a trip to Scotland to see my parents. And Sharka stays in our house. By all accounts, the door is not closed on our faces. She stays in our house in a separate bedroom. She meets my parents. We discuss it with them, but they're still not happy. And they're saying, don't do it.
And Sharka hears that? Or
They explain to her, look, you're culturally too different. And then they say, okay, then they realize that we're going to do it irrespective of them. Then they said, okay, then we will call the priest tomorrow and you will have a Muslim ceremony here. And we'll just do it like a shotgun wedding almost, with no pregnancy involved. And I look at Sharka and I'm thinking, okay. So Sharka and I discuss this privately, and Sharka says, look, I'm not Muslim, because she would have to convert to Islam. She said, I'm not Muslim. I'm not Christian. I'm not, I believe in something, but I'm agnostic, say. And I'm not comfortable with converting to Islam just for the sake of getting married. And I said, I'm not going to do anything that will make you feel uncomfortable. And I'm not comfortable about it either. So I'm not going to do it either. So, but first I asked Sharka, I said, what do you think? She said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not going. I'm not having this, the shotgun wedding to please your parents and have to convert to Islam. I'm not Muslim. I'll be just saying something. I'll be just saying words. Yes, you read a prayer and the guy, and you become Muslim. She goes, yeah, I'm just saying, what's the point of that? And she made a very good point. I said, I totally agree. It's just bullshit. So we went back to the parents and said, no, we're not doing the Muslim ceremony either. They was, and not happy. And then the sad thing after that, so we come back to Prague, Sharka and I, thinking, okay, it didn't go very well. And that must have been, I don't know, March, say, roughly, 2004. April, then around about that time, so February, probably February.
I don't think anyone is going to follow the calendar on this. Yeah. We're all over the place.
I know. Yeah, forgive me. April, at some point, my dad goes to... My dad, at that point, had bought a farm. Not that he was a farmer, but I don't know. It's one of his business ideas. And I remember telling him not to do it, but yeah, usual, you don't listen to anybody else. He buys a farm in Pakistan. before this. So he goes to visit his farm. That's what he has, the farm. He goes to his farm, and unfortunately he has a heart attack at the farm. So we're over in, say, February. By April 4th, my dad died. I got the call. I was in Prague. You have to come over to Pakistan. Your dad has died. My sister went over from Scotland. I had to go via Scotland to get a visa. It doesn't matter. And in the culture of Pakistan and Islam, people who die, they get buried very quickly after they die. Usually the preferable thing is within 24 hours, so that your soul can go to heaven. Until then it's trapped. So until you're in the ground. So I didn't make it to the formal funeral because I got there 2 days late, 2 days after he died. So he was already in the ground. So I didn't really get to say goodbye to him. And the last time I saw him was this argument about marrying Sharka. And even though we hugged, he was still telling me, "No, look, don't do it. It will hurt your mom." You know. And by then our relationship was a lot better because I would come back from Prague from the 97 up until 2004. And when he saw me, he was happy to see me. He would hug me. I was like, "Well, what's he hugging me for again?" But we were much closer, yeah. And we would joke about things. And my dad had a good sense of humor. He liked to talk about football and politics. He was still. But
it's a bitter end in a way. That the last moment is.
Yeah, he was telling me not to do it. You know, you're kind of, it won't. You know, he was quite respectful to Sharka, and he said, "Look, it's not against you. It could be any girl sitting here, but this is our traditions. This is the way it goes, and we're just not happy. It's not you personally. It could be any girl. It's because you're not Muslim, and you don't want to convert, and we're not going to force you. So we're never going to be happy about this." And to the extent, so I got married in 2004 in August. Shark and I got engaged in March. We got married in August. My mom didn't come to my dad had died. I have 3 sisters. There was a huge thing about who's going to come. My mom said, "I'm not coming to the wedding." She gave pressure to my sisters not to go to the wedding. My elder sister didn't come because she was a bit traditional, and also my mom was putting pressure on her, blackmailing her a little bit. But my other 2 sisters came to the wedding in Prague in August in 2004.
I think Sharka should get a medal. She never at some point said, "What the fuck have you dragged me into?"
No, she didn't.
No?
Not to my face.
Okay. I mean, because it's I mean, how old are you when you get married? You are
33.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you're 18 or something.
Yeah.
So
why do you ask about the age?
No, I mean, like
from a maturity point of view.
Yeah, and when the parents kind of let go.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
And it's just such a different. These traditions are so alien to me, because when for me, as of, I don't know, 21, I could just do what the fuck I wanted, and no one could tell me what to do. Of course, I would run home for help if I needed to, but so it's a long time. It's from 98 to 2004, where it's.
Well, it's even from teenage years if you go back that.
Yeah, but with her, that's why I'm saying she should get the medal, because she's stuck with it,
I hope she doesn't listen to this podcast.
Yeah. But how did this... There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of you're lying to yourself. You're not being, or let's say you're not being honest to yourself. You're not being honest to your parents.
Yep.
You're hiding.
Yep.
And you're actually having someone that you love come somehow on board on some sort of a theatrical.
She obviously thought I was worth it.
Yeah, I know. But how did you feel? I mean,
terrible. Oh, it was a horrible time. It was a horrible time. I remember. Yeah, it was thinking back about it. The anxiety,
it must eat you from the
stomach
inside.
pain. I would get stomach pain.
Yeah,
and it was just butterflies and pain and stress in my stomach, and it probably it brought out. I got down. I got anxious. I got very anxious. I went to see a doctor. I went to see a therapist because I was so anxious. I was like, I probably had a panic attack, but I didn't even know what it was. I remember, and I went to see someone, and the person wasn't even a therapist. There wasn't a trained. So it was a nutritionalist. So I went to the. It wasn't because it was just someone that was recommended. I didn't know what to do. Probably didn't know. So I went to see a nutritionalist about 3 or 4 times, and I thought this. And I said, I'm sure I must have asked, are you trained to do this? Yeah, no problem. In fact, that person was on Czech television doing nutritional advice on a television program, but at that time in 2004 or whenever it was. Because it was post-wedding, probably or pre-wedding, I can't remember. But I know I was having stress because of this whole thing that you just mentioned, this pressure, this not complying with the culture of my parents. And this had been ingrained in me since I was a kid that this was going to happen. And then I said, you know what, I'm not doing it. And all the pressure, all the family pressure, siblings, aunts, cousins, people calling me saying, what are you doing? I had my favorite uncle calling me, said, don't do it, Omar, writing me letters.
That's crazy.
I was like, and even Sharka knows this. And I said, look at the wedding pictures. I look like a rabbit in the headlights. I don't even look well. In fact, on our honeymoon, on the first day, I got really on the way to the honeymoon, all the way over flying in the honeymoon, I had a really bad cough, a really like bronchitis kind of. I had to, as soon as we landed in Sri Lanka, I had to go to the doctors. And I think it was an accumulation of all the stress, the wedding stress, the fact my mom didn't come to the wedding, my sister, my dad had died. And people would say that the wedding is your happiest day of your life.
Yeah.
Well, not everyone would say that.
No.
People will say that. It is a magical day. Like it's a special day. Like,
it's supposed to be.
And it was a very well-organized day. It was wearing my kilt. There was bagpipes. We had a beautiful garden. We had nice, friends flew in from all over the world. Czech friends, foreign friends,
Yeah, but you are still feeling
my
bad.
Mom's not there. My mom's not there and one sister's not there. And I knew even if my mom was there, she would not feel comfortable and I wouldn't feel comfortable. So in some ways it was good that my mom wasn't there because at least I could enjoy some of it. But I enjoyed my wedding in the sense that, but I look at the photographs of it when they're in our house now. If you go there, you'll see them on the show. And I just look at my photograph and go, I look like a ghost.
But I now if I like kind of, when I hear this, I mean, you're still married.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
And how is the relationship with your mom and your older sister? How did that kind of?
Well, it repaired at some point. It slowly repaired. I think I went back and held out the olive branch, and then slowly, and then the kid came. We have 3 kids now, but our eldest was born in 2006. And I think with the first grandchild, that helped too. But it was already starting to mend. There's a lot of... my mum passed away last year in March. It's not very long since my mum died. And because I was the only son in this kind of, golden son thing or whatever, the thing that you mentioned, which my mum would never say, by the way.
Golden dick.
No, you couldn't say asshole in front of my mum. She would, she would pin you to the wall.
She would have loved me.
Oh no, no. She would maybe like your beard and say you're handsome, but she didn't like us using, profanity. Anyway, shit was even a problem for her. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So so it softened, and they often say with grandchildren, that helped. So when Adam came, who's now almost 15, then, and even before Adam, she'd come over and stayed with us when we were married, before we had kids. And she had health problems, and Sharka organized her rehabilitation for her. She had problem with her knees, her spine. She had arthritis. She had poor eyesight, as I might have mentioned earlier, or did mention earlier. She had a catalogue, but we took her on a rehabilitation program in a clinic outside of Prague for like 2 weeks. Sharka organized the whole thing. In fact, Sharka and I, we went there with my mum, and we stayed there. It was on site. So it was there for 2 weeks. So the first week, Sharka even stayed with us. And then Sharka had to go back to work, and I stayed the second week. So I stayed 2 weeks with my mum on this clinic, and Sharka organised that all. That was before the kids. So you could tell that my mum was softening, and Sharka's got a great personality, and there was a lot of things in common, talking about cooking or the garden or just life in general. And my mum was quite engaging. She was a comedian. or very jovial. So she kind of got over it in some ways. I'm sure if you ask my mum, if you could pick for your son wife A, which would be the traditional one, she would pick wife A anytime.
But did she tell you that she was okay with this? Did you have that reconciliation with her somehow?
Not in words, just by actions.
But was that enough for you to?
Yeah, I could tell my mum was when she saw Adam and the way she was with Sharka, how she would ask about her on the phone calls, how she would praise her about her cooking abilities or her abilities, whatever it was, or talk fondly about Sharka's parents or something. She would say how she's whatever. She would be complimentary about her in some way, shape or form, that she's organized or whatever it was. So she had a respect for Sharka. That's for sure.
And what about your sister, the oldest one?
Yeah, her as well. Yeah. As soon as they met her and got to know her, they liked her, fell in love with her in that sense of daughter-in-law relationship.
So, I mean, you're like, it's an interesting generation that you belong to in a way, because you are, you come, or you're born into and raised in an environment that is completely different to what your parents and grandparents came from. And you're kind of the bridge between, let's say, the old traditions or the more traditional conservative traditions, and then, Scottish society is a different thing. I mean, you can have these two religions there, the Protestant and the Catholics, but it's a very kind of liberal society to some extent. I mean, like
compared to Pakistan, but and even not liberal in many other senses.
in many other ways, it's actually 60s, very very conservative. But I and then if we look at your story, like in there's been a lot of pressure on you from very early age, like a lot of expectation. You had to kind of step up and be the responsible guy in the household. In the absence of your father, or let's say while your father was chasing his adventures. And you were put under enormous pressure to follow a certain path that you knew probably from very early on you were not going to follow. Did you go to and see someone else than just a nutritionist about this? I mean, I guess this has had a big impact on you.
Well, when you put it like that, no surprise, I did go and see a therapist. Because, but not until 2012, I think. So a long time had happened between all that and me realizing, because I started to feel down.
Yeah, but how?
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm curious. You started to feel down, but did you see any patterns in your life that you were? What prompted you to go in? Let's say that that you to talk to someone. That you felt down, or
I started to feel down or anxious or depressed, but not in the sense that I couldn't get out of bed in the morning depressed, which unfortunately some people do. And I didn't. I had this, horrible feeling in my stomach. I was losing enthusiasm for work, and I had just started a new job, which created its own pressures. I took over a failing business, or a business that was doing very badly, and it was my responsibility to fix it. And I took on that role. And I had been working in a fairly, I wouldn't say high stress, but I say a stressful environment. And the 2008 crash had happened after, the great financial crisis after the Lehman Brothers and all this collateralized debt and situation. So, so it was okay from the married kid came 2009, the first kid, it was a boy. Then another kid came, another second boy, Daniel, in 2009. I had at that point my third job in the Czech Republic. I had a good job. I really liked it. I was traveling around the region, even to Spain, to do transactions and real estate transactions in Barcelona. I was going to Bucharest. I was going to Kiev, interesting places, Warsaw, Krakow, whatever, Slovakia, Budapest. I was going to traveling around. I had a regional job, and I was getting on a flight, and it was that kind of, isn't that cool to be flying around Europe, going to conferences in Paris. But people who are doing it get very bored of it very quickly.
I hate it.
Yeah.
It's the worst part of any job.
Yeah. So, but it's glamorous to people outside.
Yeah,
it's
awful.
Yeah,
don't do it. If you're listening, don't do it.
So I had that job. I know friends and colleagues of mine who travelled a lot more. So at that time, I was working with an Irish company. I really enjoyed working with that Irish company, and I'm still friendly with many of the people from that time. But so I was distracted by my career. So I really kind of unknowingly threw myself into my career, trying to make my.
And then it somehow caught up.
Yeah,
with
it caught up with me. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, so I took on this job, and then as soon as I started to take on the job, I don't know, I realized the mountain of this new job, what it would take. It wasn't going to fix itself quickly. I wanted to fix tomorrow. I joined, and within 3 weeks, I said, why is it not better? I was impatient. So, and then I started to feel this, things that I could do easily became difficult. I would look at a spreadsheet for an hour.
Without knowing what's on it.
And then I would realize, what am I doing? Yeah, it was weird. I didn't know what was happening. I was like, but then what would happen was it would disappear for a while, and I would be fine again for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and then it would come back. Then it would be another week. I wouldn't know how to send the email, or even I didn't want to. I would avoid phone calls. I wouldn't. Yeah, I would be like, don't call me. I don't want someone. Someone would come with me with a problem, like, oh, not another problem to fix. It's difficult enough. Smallest things would start to irritate me.
Overwhelming.
I'm a perfectionist, so I can't even match my own standards. Forget anyone else. Everything is not good enough. It can always be better, and it's not healthy to be like that. So this kind of drive to be a performer and being in a macho corporate, relatively macho corporate, where you need to have, to some extent, sharp elbows to get to the top, and being from a young age, even at the age of 29 here, I was made in charge of a business, of a real estate, corporate real estate, well, not corporate, but a real estate business, commercial real estate business called DTZ. I was the youngest managing director they had. That, like, on CV, that looks fantastic. But at the time, it was like, yeah, whatever. It's like, I'll just get on with it. So I had these kind of relatively senior jobs. Yeah, okay, and I was not running, I wasn't running, NASA or something like this, or, but I had, from in my sphere, I had, relatively good job. I didn't see it. I just thought it's just another stepping stone. This is what you do. You get promoted, you try your best, you keep your head down.
But there was something nagging you.
Yeah. And even in Scotland, I remember it was nagging me. I felt like some emptiness or irritation. But then so in those years, just to get back, 2000, so I started this new job. This business which hadn't been doing well. There was a lot to be fixed. And probably that started to overwhelm me a little bit. And then, so I'm the kind of person, every failure I felt for the company, I would feel it personally, thinking, well, I didn't train the person well enough. I didn't check that email or whatever. And every success, it was like, that was a minimum. That's what's so expected. So the minimum. And you could never say, I'm not having a good day. If you meet any of your competition, of which you meet them, and the good thing about Prague real estate community is it's quite friendly, actually. We are competition, but many of us are friends. We drink together, we play football together, or we do sports together, or we even socialize together with Czechs and with non-Czechs. So it's kind of friend, and I like that. It's kind of friendly environment, even at the competition. But you can never say to your peer in the other business, or you could say if you knew them well, but everyone, this is business, this is not real estate, this is just job. You don't say how you really feel. Everything's good. Yeah, we're doing fantastic. Oh, it's brilliant. Even though you've just lost a big contract. But because you can't be vulnerable in that environment. Or you think you can't be vulnerable because it's seen as a weakness. And so I had the same thing. So the same thing, I was feeling shit, I was feeling down, but I had to show up 9 o'clock till 8 o'clock or 7 or whatever it was, and feeling like shit. And luckily, still somehow managing with bringing in new colleagues, still somehow managing to make a success of it.
And having a family.
And having kids. And then another kid comes. So we have 3 kids now. A girl appears, luckily not another boy. So we have our own princess. And then you've got this still nagging thing from the past. You're letting down the people in Scotland. You didn't really do and that was deep inside me. It's deep in my DNA. The claws of those nurturing, that I would going to go down a certain path. I was the only son, and I would do the right thing, and then letting people down. And that's one thing probably from my personality. I don't like letting people down. And
but that's obvious in your case. I mean, and even a nutritionist would say that if a kid is given such a responsibility at a young age like you do, then it builds a sense of responsibility that is there forever.
Okay, yeah, it's just I didn't think of it like that, but yeah, fair enough.
I mean, I'm not even a nutritionist, but I'm curious, just because in some way, one could guess, okay, you kind of ran away from it.
Yeah.
You knew you couldn't deal with it head on, so you kind of ran away. I mean, maybe not a conscious decision, but it's there. And but in the end, you couldn't really run away from it because it kind of came with you somehow.
Yeah, so...
And you worked on this. I mean, I guess you've been working on through this, because, I mean, this is not something that just... I don't know.
Disappears?
No, it doesn't.
No, you're right.
It's always in the backpack.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, you describe it well. So I go and see a therapist, a proper one this time. I don't go to a nutritionalist or someone selling snake oil in the corner or whatever. I find one on the internet and I go and have a chat. Funny enough, it was Scandinavian. It was a lady. And she started to, I described my feelings and described how I felt awful, that I was losing enthusiasm for work, for life. And although I was functioning on some level, but
we're just going through the motions somehow.
Yeah, I was going through, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. Yeah, so that was, I was unhappy. I said, oh, what should I do? So she kind of broke it down for me. And so I remember, so we had a session once and she asked me to draw a tree. Okay, I'll draw a tree. So I drew a tree and gave her the paper, and she looked at it and she studied it for a couple of seconds and then says, you know what, this is what it means. So I drew this tree. There was no roots on the tree. It was just a tree. And so the rest was fine. The tree, the bushes, green, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. If it maybe had colored pencils, probably I did. And she said, what it kind of tells me is that you have no roots here. And she would ask me, how do you see life here? And I'd say, well, I'm this Scottish guy of brown colour, Pakistani Muslim background, living in Czech Republic. I don't feel part really of Czechs. I don't speak Czech that well. I was in a busy job. I had international clients. I didn't think I would stay here very long. I know these are excuses, and it's my biggest bugbear that I don't speak good Czech. I speak a decent level of Czech, but not business Czech. I can go to the restaurant and you could put me in the middle of Czech Republic and I can get the bus timetable and get myself back to Prague, and you would expect as a bare minimum of someone who's been here since 1997. But I don't speak fluent Czech, unlike some of my friends, foreign friends who speak fluent Czech. Not many of them, but some of them do. And
so you don't have roots?
I don't have roots. And she explained this, you don't feel rooted here. You've broken away from your family, you've had all this pressure. No wonder you're feeling down. You're pretty much, from how you describe it to how I described her, you're a perfectionist. Nothing is good enough. It can always be better, and you're always being hard on yourself. You need to let these things go. Sometimes, as my one boss said to me at the time, sometimes, Omar, good enough is good enough. It doesn't need to be, okay, you can always be better, but sometimes you just need to accept it's good enough. And he gave me some good advice, but I never took his advice, unfortunately. I wish I had at the time.
You understood them later.
I understood them later. Sometimes you have to go through the pain, So I had this, and it was the whole thing about the guilt of letting my mother down. And my mum didn't let me forget it either. It's not as if, okay, she had made the olive branch and prepared a bridge. There was a relationship with Sharka. But, when my mum got angry and as she got more ill and depressed herself, she would bring it up. Yeah, you've abandoned me and all this. So it was like, I didn't want to call
the guilt card.
And because of our own maybe situation. So she was projecting her own issues to me and to my sisters as well. It's not as if my sisters got away. Whatever my sisters did was never good enough. And they would be, doing hundreds of things for my mum. And she still would be complaining to me on the weekend. So it came to an extent I didn't even want to call her anymore. It was like, oh God, it's a chore. It's not. it shouldn't be a chore to call your mum. You know, it should be like a happy thing. But unfortunately, we all have these things, and some people have it worse. I'm not making a sad story out of this. It's just the way it was.
There's no perfect family.
Exactly,
nowhere,
exactly. And I had it better than most. I'm not get the violin out for me. This is not the point of the story.
No, we have a guitar here, but on the other hand, I guess because this I can see where this stress could come from. That could kind of damage you, and luckily you did something about it. You realized it, and okay, I need to do something about this because that's the only way to kind of be able to live with this. But I guess on the other hand, you can also be thankful because, as you said, okay, 29-year-old, you get a really good job. You're the youngest managing director for a real estate company here
a big real estate company.
And I mean, I looked at your CV. I hate reading CVs, but I looked at yours, and I mean, it's impressive. And in some way, there was some work ethics hammered into you through this childhood and stepping up and taking the responsibility and so on, and that gave you some sort of a foundation that I guess you're thankful for.
Yeah, that kind of hard work. I'm not scared to roll my sleeves up. If it needs to get, I know I'm not a great delegator, which is not a fantastic skill not to be a good delegator, because sometimes it's better to delegate. But I work hard. I'm a worker to some extent. I would say I'm a workaholic. I like it even. I like real estate. I like property, so I enjoy it. So, and that's good. I'd love to be a professional football player, but I don't have the skills for professional football playing. But I have some skills to be a real estate consultant.
I think it's often, it's often easier to, how do you say, get lost in the more of the negative effects of challenging childhood and upbringing than it is to see the positives. And in this case, your positive is it gave you work ethics. When I look back, and I would say this to even to myself, I would say, like, look at your life, or I'd say to the therapist, look, what have I got to complain about? I'm successful by by standards of if you look around. Not that materialism is that important to me, but it probably was at some point in my life. But as I got older, I'm not less and less. I'm not so materialistic. In fact, I'm going the other way where consume less. Consume less. Just you don't need to have 3 cars. You can get the tram. So. I've lost my train of thought a little bit about this, but. You were on the tram because you don't.
I'm on the wrong tram, I think. And
now, anyway, let me take that then, because I wanted to kind of, I find this very interesting. I mean, it's you lived a secret life, a big part of your life.
Secret from, say, my loved ones in the family unit, and aunties and uncles who would see me as a golden child. He's done well. Look at your cousin and all this kind of stuff. Look at Omar's. It's like, stop it. And not being able to take praise as well. I don't know where that comes from, but be very uncomfortable with being praised. Even anytime, even now, it's like whatever. It's like normal. And it's to get to your point, this foundation is like it instilled some sort of work ethic in me, and just my personality, or the environment of being in a corporate environment is like, see, when you do well, it's like this. See, when you do well, that's what's the minimum is expected to you. But if you do badly, now that's a different problem.
I know.
Doing well, so if you make your company money, that's where
you're there for.
Yeah, exactly. That's why they pay you.
Yeah. If you lose it, or you don't make them enough money, that's.
So you have that environment like that where you are judged by numbers, black or red numbers, and I kind of lost my love for the corporate culture. Even going back to that job in 2011, I had lost my love for the corporate culture. I thought it to be a false environment. I would criticize the values of the company, not because they weren't good values, it's because the company didn't even live by their own values. Why would they have these values on the webpage, but they couldn't demonstrate them? And I'm not picking on the company that I work for. I saw this in other companies. Everywhere. So I was thinking, this is just false. And this goes back to this thing of being in this corporate environment. it's not an easy environment because of the alpha males, and I to some extent are one of those alpha males. I don't know, on the scale of being alpha male, I'm not at the top scale, thank God. I like to think I'm at the bottom scale of being an alpha male, but at some point I've had to be an alpha male. I wouldn't have led these companies, asked to even come. I was, phoned up, can you come and work for us, type of thing. It wouldn't if they didn't see me as the person who could do it. And luckily I had the CV that proved I had the results to prove it. But in that environment, it's not a place where you can easily admit things aren't going well. Or you can be vulnerable. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, I
everything is brilliant.
Yeah, and it has to be, and you always have to keep a face.
Exactly.
But the most important thing is that you can be honest with yourself. For me, that's I feel that.
So okay, being honest with yourself. So I had this situation where I wasn't being honest with myself due to this whole cultural thing which we've just gone through, so we don't need to probably go over that. We've gone over that ground. So I was carrying that with me, unbeknown to me. It was explained to me,
and then you saw it.
Okay, I saw it. Yeah, you're correct. I saw it. I actually didn't even know what to do with it. Okay, I have it. So what do I do with this? And it was like, you have to do more therapy. I'm like, oh, bugger this. I'm not interested in more therapy. But that was a mistake. Because then I stopped it, after 12 sessions or whatever, I don't know how many there were, I stopped it. And then only to realize I had to go back, and 3 years later, because I didn't resolve it, because I was flippant about it.
Yeah, and I think with a lot of these things, like, because for me, I mean, I've gone to some extent a similar path. I mean, I had therapeutic help to resolve certain issues at a certain point in my life, and luckily there I learned, sort of a self-recognition and self-awareness that I constantly need to have always somehow. Do you know what I mean? It's
work with yourself.
That to be aware of the pitfalls, let's say, some certain habits of, thought processes and stuff like this that I kind of have to maintain.
Okay. So let's finish. So I started this job in 2011. Yeah. So by 2017, I'm sick of it. I'm doing well. Company's making profit. We have a nice new office. We have new clients. We have new colleagues. We have better systems. We have better quality of our work. People are praising us in the market for punching above your weight. Look at you guys. Look at your profit margins. One of the more successful businesses in this large organization in terms of, on many key KPIs, key performance indicators, we are doing well. My bosses are very happy with me. They see maybe bigger roles for me in the future, and this, if I, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's irrelevant maybe, but I'm not happy. I'm like, some days I don't want to go to the office. I'm like, oh fuck, got to go there again. So I start feeling down, and then I realize I need to do something. So in 2017, at the end, I go to my boss and say, I'm leaving. They say, what? Look, you're doing well. Why are you leaving? What can we do to make you stay? I mean, it's not about what you can do to make me stay. I'm not staying. So I have 6 months. So I say, okay, fine. They understand. They say, look, I just need to leave. And I had good bosses. I had good people that I work with. There's a good company that I work with, the last one. Yeah, they were good people. And I like them. And we stay friends to this day. I'm glad of that. And they say, okay, so you have 6 months on your contract. You have 6 months notice. We don't have a replacement for you. Will you stay your 6 months? I said, yeah, I'm not going to do anything crazy. I'm not leaving tomorrow. I'm going to honor. I don't have another job. I'm just leaving. Not leaving to work for the competitor or start my own business. I just need some time off. And I said, look, I'm just not feeling great. I didn't explain in much detail. I didn't feel I needed to explain too much. So I said, look, I'm leaving. And I wanted to have a break. I thought having a break. So I didn't realize at the time that I was having burnout. That was this anxiety, this depression, this not wanting, this feeling miserable in the morning. Was just a form. It was depression. It was depression. Let's just call it what it was. It was a form of depression. Okay, I wasn't about to jump off a bridge. So it was burnout, but I didn't even know it was burnout. It was just like, what's happening? Okay, I don't feel, because there would be times when I was fine. I was on the paper, I was performing. Just inside, I was dying. So anyway, so I say I'm leaving. I worked the 6 months, and summer 2018, we have a nice leaving party, a nice presents, and I leave. And I have 6 months off. And I go traveling with the family. I go traveling on my own. I go to Lebanon, where I was supporting some charity. I worked with them for a little while in their office. I go to Scotland often. I see my parents, see my friends. We have a university reunion, so I saw some people I hadn't seen for ages, which was nice. And then comes at the beginning of 2019, and I'm thinking 6 months off, that's enough, Omar, you know. I meet a friend and they say, have another 6 months. 6 months is not enough. You've been working all these years. You need to let your brain settle. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then again, listen to some good advice. I thought, I need to get back in work. Again, it's this kind of environment that you have to keep going. It's like the hamster on the wheel. You have to keep going and proving yourself. And so I said, I have to get back into work because I'll forget things, or I won't be relevant.
Yeah, not relevant anymore.
So, but I knew I didn't know what. I don't want to work for these big corporates. I don't even want to apply for any jobs. I have some real estate skills. I had some contacts. I have a good contact, and he said, I've got a spare desk. Why don't you just bring your laptop, and you can use the reception and the meeting rooms, and you don't pay me any rent. If you make some fees, we'll somehow split them. But he was so kind, like he didn't even talk about what he wanted. He just said, I like you, Omar. If you want to sit in my office, and he's he's got a big company here, you can just use the desk in the corner. We'll leave you alone, type of thing. If you need a base, it was very kind of them, I didn't even know the guy that well. It was not like he was my best friend. It was somebody I would see once a year. We would speak every 6 months. But he's got a big heart. He's a nice guy. He said, you can do that. So I went and did that. And that was 2019. So I'm doing that on my own, one-man show, trying to set up a web page and all this kind of stuff, trying to get some business, understanding there's own type of work I can do. But I just said, okay, I'm being involved, not making much money, using my savings to more or less survive. Which is fine because I wasn't being so stupid. From my father's days, I put some money past for the rainy day. So I was using the rainy day money I've got 3 kids, Fortunately, only one of them was at the fee-paying English school. The rest the other 2 they didn't get the special treatment. The eldest one goes to the expensive school. The other 2 go to Czech school. So, but the fees are, whatever. They're 20,000 euros a year. You have to pay 25,000, whatever crazy money. And I'm thinking, how am I going to pay for that? Feed my kids, pay my mortgage, blah, blah, blah. So I started this in 2019. By, say, end of summer, it was like, again, the same problem. So I went to the guy. Same problem, in the sense that I'm feeling down again. I'm feeling I don't want to do this. I'm feeling anxious. Things that take me a second to do were taking me hours to do. My brain was slowed down. And someone explained this to me, that your body needed a rest. You weren't giving it a rest. So it deliberately does this to you. So it makes you slow down because you're not doing it. And so your body's like taking over and slowing your brain down. Because that I only knew this only recently. I only read about this, and I thought, that's what happened to me. Things that I could do in a split second, decisions I could make in a split second, or whatever, a couple of minutes. Problems I could solve I would be like, if that problem came at that point when I was feeling, I was like, oh, this is the worst thing. Oh, it's like a mountain to climb. But other day I could climb that mountain in one step, kind of like, to use metaphors, to try and break it down. So
So basically, it's kind of catching up with you again.
It comes back. So I explained to the guy who gave me the desk that I have that I can't do that. And he was very understanding. He said, that's fine, I understand, it's okay. So I then I had a period of feeling shit again. And all through the second or the last quarter of 2019, feeling awful, not wanting to meet my friends. And I'm quite a social person. Not returning calls, deliberately avoiding gatherings of mates, just about making it to the football game on the weekends. And then we go into early 2020, first quarter, just before Corona. As it's starting, I get the call, Mum's really ill, you have to come back to Scotland, she's going to die. So in February, I fly back to Scotland, 2020. And then on March 14th, unfortunately, my mum passes away. But and she was in a bad way. We were looking after her at home. We'd brought her back from the hospital. Her kidneys by this time had failed. She had diabetes for a while. So all these things over life had compiling. So she effectively put her on a morphine drip, and it was just managing her death. But then we looked after her at home for the last 2 weeks before she passed. 24 hours. I did for 10 days. I stayed with my mom. I woke up through the night. I took her to the bathroom. I cleaned up after her. My aunt was there. My sisters were there. My mom was dying. She was dying in her arms. And I managed to spend this. And she didn't really know what was going on because she was on morphine. But she would ask about the kids. She would ask, why did you come and see me? I will be fine. Well, I'm going to be fine. Or she would ask me, am I going to live, Omar? Am I going to make this? And I'll be like, you'll be fine, Mom. I knew she was dying, but you don't tell that to the person. Like, it's okay, Mom, it's here. And she would forget. And most of the day she was sleeping.
All this is coming when you feel this depression or heaviness again. Then all this happens, and then you got COVID coming with lockdowns and all that. Well,
this thing about my mom in a I don't mean to sound cruel, but it kind of focused my mind. Again, you have to step up. My mom needs my help. I'm responsible.
You're kind of forced to.
It just kicked in, autopilot. You take charge. You don't feel. It was no problem. I know my mom was in a bad way. She was on her way out. She was about to die. She was still quite young. She was, she was born in 50, so she was 70. She was 70.
Yeah.
Just turned 70. Yeah, in January she was 70. January 3rd, 2020, she was 70. So she's 70, not that old by standards, and she's on her way out. But I just step up, and it's like autopilot kicked in. I felt okay. I could manage this. I didn't feel down. I'm just like, I have to get this done. I have to look after my mom. And not only me, my sisters were there, and my aunt was there. So we had some help from her. But we were effectively the nurses. For my mom, the cleaning, and she wasn't eating much. She would eat a small bit during the day, and then she died in her own bed. And then Corona had just kicked in at the same time. Then I stayed for a little bit longer. She died in mid-March. I stayed for a week or 2 weeks after. We buried my mom very quickly. The day after she died, she died on a Saturday. By Sunday, she was buried. By 3:00, she was in the ground. It was that quick, and that's our culture. So my sisters washed her body at the mortuary. We had the Muslim prayer for her. Corona hasn't quite kicked in, and it's kind of fortunate for my mum because we didn't have this. We were able to say goodbye to her. Many people's loved ones have died since, and they couldn't even, they couldn't mourn, they couldn't grieve. So our mum died in our arms, kind of in some way, which was in some way therapeutic or whatever you want to call it. So I come back and then I come back to Prague in early April or whatever. This quarantine kicks in, so I have to I'd have to isolate for 2 weeks. And if I went home to my family, so I just buried my mother.
They would have to isolate with you.
But unfortunately, I managed to find an apartment, or we had an apartment, a small rental apartment, which became empty. So I went there, and Sharka put some food in there, took some clothes down for me. I had some anyway from Scotland. And so I couldn't even hug my kids, say hello after being away for 3-4 weeks, hug my wife. I just had to go to the apartment and just
be on your own.
Be on my own, and it wasn't great weather, I remember. Yeah, and I just slept the first week. I was down, obviously. I cried a bit. My mum had died. I managed to get out for a walk once for an hour. And then the second week I remember starting to feel a little bit better. And I've been, effectively, I've been feeling better. And it's also connected to my mum dying because this guilt has been lifted. And I don't want to sound, I don't know how this, cruel but I even knew this would happen. I knew that the day that my mum passes away, this burden will be lifted. I won't feel responsible for pleasing my mum or not letting her down. She's no longer off this world. She's gone to the next world or wherever she is, and flying in the sky, or or if she's in heaven. She's Muslim mum, so she'll believe that she's hopefully in heaven. I'm sure she is. But the point of the story is that the burden lifted, and I knew this would happen. I didn't tell anyone. But it did. It happened.
Because it's wrong to say it in some way. You know what I mean?
I would have my mum back in a second. If you said, you want your mum back now? I was like, hey, you don't need to ask me this question. In a blink of an eyelid.
But But I'm thinking, like, did you feel then, because in some way, it's kind of like, yeah, like this whole thing. I mean, actually, we have talked about something completely different than I expected here.
Really?
In some way, I was going to talk to you about real estate, but we're not talking. We're actually not actually really going to talk about real estate today. But
I talk about real estate every day, so maybe
yeah,
it's a bit of a break for me.
but
But if you want to know about real estate,
no,
ask me.
yeah, but I'm thinking now, in some way, your whole life until last year, or no, 2019,
2020.
2020, sorry,
March 2020.
Yeah, March 2020.
A year ago.
It's the first time that you are from you're escaping the expectation somehow. Or
Freedom from
yeah,
expectations.
and I'm just, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm going to say about this, because it's just such it's just an interesting circle somehow, that you're 50 years old. You're finally free.
I don't look 50, but yeah, I'm 50.
Yeah, you're finally free somehow.
Yes, freedom, yeah. From this responsibility or guilt.
Yeah.
From the guilt. I would call it guilt. Feeling guilty of letting people down. You didn't match their expectations of you.
Mm.
So that was lifted, yeah. And a lot of things were said, and there's also things which are not said.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to ask you, actually. Now, yeah, you got me back on track, because do you feel that you have some things unsaid or things unheard?
In reflection, when I think back, for moments I get angry. Like, what the fuck? I mean, what a waste of putting this pressure on your child and all your children, just not me. I mean, think about my sisters. They have similar issues, and so it's just not me, and I'm not trying to be a victim or anything. And I said, I don't need to say it again, but I love my mom and dad in their own way. They were good parents, but they projected onto me, and look what happened to me. I ended up getting down, depressed, you call it what you want. Partly due to that, maybe other reasons too, because it's multi-layered. There's not one thing. We know that, yeah. So, even now I've lost the train of thought.
Yeah, but if there's something unsaid or unheard, but yeah, I guess that is...
I mean, the anger, in moments, the anger, like, what a waste of time, what a waste of effort, what a waste of anxiety. Imagine what could have happened if I felt great. Carrying it since 2012 or even a bit earlier, off and on. Like, it's 8 years later, 9 years later. Like the pain and towards the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, like not knowing what the heck's going on, not being able to get out of bed in the morning, not wanting to see your friends, not eating. So the only upside for me from being down was that I lost some weight. So maybe I'll start to get depressed again. I could do with losing a few pounds after lockdown. So,
but I think that it's very often like this, that when some influential person disappears from one's life through death, usually, then the pressure is relieved.
Yeah, it was like a valve, of a pressure cooker, and it's taken its time, Alma, because I've had to work on myself. When I wasn't feeling down, I was looking for answers. I would watch YouTube videos, podcasts on how to feel better, and I would, or the therapist would tell me. Now, I knew what to do, I didn't know how to do it, and I don't read self-help books. I maybe read 2 self-help books in my life because I get bored with them, and there's a difference between knowing. So I knew the problems, and that was also the frustrating thing for me in 2018. I knew what the issues were, even earlier. I just didn't know how to fix them. I don't know how to love myself more. I mean, these are the kind of things you love yourself. How do you do that?
Yeah.
Where did they teach you?
They don't teach you that in school.
They don't, and your parents don't teach it to you. It's almost like it's narcissism or arrogance or overconfidence. And loving yourself is not thinking you're fantastic. For me, loving yourself is just being comfortable in your skin. And I think this also reflects in business environment. Many of the people who are these macho women or guys, really, forget women are not that macho, but anyway, people who are maybe come across in a certain way or even seen as successful and but can be like assholes. It's they're just not. They're probably in some. I'm just guessing. I think many of them are just not happy with themselves. Some of them don't even know. They haven't lifted the mask off. They are still trying to get the house in France and the private jet and the expensive watch and the newest car and the latest iPhone and the 6 holidays and putting on Facebook and I know I'm on Facebook and Twitter, but I'm usually cracking jokes and making fun of other people or my friends mostly.
I don't find you very funny there, but yeah.
No, I know.
As long as you.
But then
think
you're
so.
Icelandic. I mean, tell me one good Icelandic comedian that the world would know. Scotland's produced thousands.
Yeah. But
Omar Sattar's one of them. Failed one though.
But in some way, I just came to my mind. You've lived in the shadow of Islam.
I wouldn't say Islam. No, I mean this. You could be Indian and you would have the same. You could be Sikh, Hindu. You could be Jewish from Israel. You could be Jehovah's Witness. You could be whatever. I think it's
the wrong
expectation.
word.
Yeah, Islam is not. It's cultural. It's whatever it's the environment. It's this nature nurture thing. It's Islam's part of it because it just happens to be it's like the lottery ticket that I drew. Yeah. I was born in this family. Some of the lottery ticket was good in my eyes. It was in Scotland. I could have been born in Pakistan. I would be a farmer now, growing sugarcane, and we wouldn't be having this podcast.
No,
and I'd be making jokes in Pakistani language.
Yeah, you'd be a failed Pakistani comedian. I think we are coming to the end of this.
We didn't cover.
No, but I wanted to, if you give me so here we are, 2021, and you are working for a company called Crowdberry.
Exactly. Yes.
And we talked about it a little bit there in the beginning. Give me the 30-second elevator pitch on Crowdberry.
So Crowdberry is a crowdfunding investment platform which is invested in SMEs and startups in Czech and Slovakia. Approximately 33 companies, about 47 million euros committed. Some of those SMEs are also real estate, and that's why they have people like me there. In addition, recently we just launched a new fund, real estate fund. It's a registered fund in the Czech Republic. It's called Qualified Investor Fund. It has certain tax benefits, like tax rate of that fund is only 5% as opposed to 19%. And to invest in this fund, you need to invest a minimum of 1 million crowns. So,
and the million Czech crowns is 40,000,
40,000 euros. Exchange rate.
And then on the other part, you are also crowdfunding real estate projects.
We're crowdfunding real estate projects and SMEs. So some of the SMEs that our business has invested our clients' money in is like cancer diagnostics, prop tech, yogurt manufacturer, for example, or Eco Capsule, which is a type of sustainable caravan, say, or it's just something, or even the food shop, which is a shop which sells high-end sneakers. Yeah. And then we have a couple of real estate transactions in there, the ones which I kind of involved in, which is like last mile logistics, brand new last mile logistics centers, one real estate project, one residential project or reconstruction of a building into apartments, and also one retail park, retail big box, so next to a Lidl and some, like Droxy, pet shop, this type of retail.
Yeah, this mini...
big box we call a retail park is what we call it.
Yeah, like they have in the States.
Yeah, usually at the edge of town, and you park. There's not a shopping mall. Yeah. And now the fund is going to be investing in commercial, real and residential in Czech and Slovakia. We're aiming to give returns of above 10%. So that's
the cool thing about this, because when I was checking this stuff out, is that with this actually gives the crowd, let's say the crowd-funded real estate investments, gives someone who has a little bit of money extra a chance to get in on a real estate project, which is
or SME project.
Yeah, the real estate is usually less risky. Let's say the concrete is there, regardless of whether someone buys shoes or not.
Yes.
What's the minimum investment if I would want to come in on a real estate project?
So if it was just a crowdfunded, we could do it two ways, or we will do it two ways. So if it's the crowd, which we've done so far, the crowdfunding way, typically 10%, 10,000 euros is the minimum to get in. And so you decide whether you want to invest in this deal or not. In the fund, it's a minimum of 40,000 euros, but it's I am effectively running that fund along with another colleague. We are on the investment committee. We have some, it's very complicated. Let's not go into it. But there is an investment committee, and as long as the investments which go into the fund match the rules of the fund, the investment committee should approve it. Now, so to answer your question, if you want to do a crowdfunding real estate deal, it's 10,000. If you want to have where you decide, you pick the deal. You don't need to go in. But when you put your money in the fund, then you're relying on my judgment. Judgment. I pick the building. I pick when we buy it and when we will sell it. And you basically get shares in the fund, and the share price moves every quarter.
Yeah, and you can sell and exit.
You can sell after 4 years. You can sell and exit your.
But I like the crowdfunded
stuff
because it gives
democracy or democratization. Easy for me to say. Democratization of real estate ownership.
Yeah, and I think it also gives the ticket to the dance is much cheaper than.
Well, it's lower hurdle to get in, and people can participate in an investment. Now, in a market like Czech Republic or CE, investment products are less sophisticated, or people's investment knowledge is much lower. And it's no reflection of the pop. It's just the way it is. People are not buying. Not many people. So, okay, some are shares in whatever, Google or whatever company, Toyota, Nike. They're not buying shares in those companies.
No.
Of course, some people are, but some they don't know about the bond market. It's scary, All these, what's the price per earning share? What's the NAV? All this jargon you could put off. The price is fluctuating up and down. Wow, people like real estate. They live in real estate. Their work is in real estate.
And
you can touch it. It's visible. So everyone thinks they know about real estate. Everyone's got an opinion about the property. Not everyone, but many people think they're a developer and they can do this and it's easy. And why do we pay you guys so much? But yeah, fair enough. Go and do it. Yourself. If it's that easy. But and some people do really well out of it. They don't need guys like me. They can do it. It's not that difficult. Come on. But yeah, you just need to be sensible. But it's interesting. And the next stage is going to be even more interesting because it's all going blockchain and all this kind of tokenization of real estate, and it's even getting more fragmented. But you're right. It allows people to participate in, and that's what we are providing. We are providing that conduit or that channel to allow, in inverted commas, the average person to invest in something which they can read, review. They've got to trust us, my experience, my colleagues.
Which they would never afford to invest in on their own. Maybe
they couldn't buy that building of 5 million euros or 20 million euros on their own. And we use debt from the bank, so usually it's like 50% of it comes from the bank, or 70% or 70. Sorry. And just to be clear, that depending on the project itself, and the rest comes what they call from equity. And we are projecting returns above 10% on the equity portion, over say 5-6 years. That's usually the lifespan, because real estate is liquid, but still not as liquid as a share in Toyota or whatever. And
what's the webpage of this?
The fund webpage is cbpi.eu, and the crowdfunding investment marketplace, which does have some real estate and other transactions, other types of deals on it, is Crowdberry. If you just Google Crowdberry, you will find it. There's not many companies called Crowdberry.
No. I thought it was I misread it. I saw this name some months ago, and I thought it was like a crowbar business that we make crowbars for burglars. But yeah, you're not.
You're trying to say we're thieves?
No, no.
I know the word. I asked, why did you pick Crowdberry? And apparently the guys who picked it was because crowdfunding, obviously, and berries because you pick the best fruit. So it's like picking the best, because we review many businesses, and we refuse some of them and say, look, we can't make this work. They don't accept the terms that we think our investors would need, the governance that they need to, because we are handling other people's money. So we need to make sure for reputation that we do it right. And I'm glad that philosophy is in the company, that we do things the right way, and we are aware that this is not our cash. It is the money of our investors, and we need to protect it and give a good return as much as we can.
This is a very schizophrenic episode. We're talking on one hand about the
you're giving me more problems. Now you're telling me I'm schizophrenic.
Yeah, the anxiety that built up inside you from the expectation from your family and the traditions that they and then now we just talked about return on investment and net present values and
NAVs,
yeah.
yields, yeah.
all the good
We
stuff.
didn't talk about yields, but let's not go there.
No. Omar, it's been great to have you.
It's been a pleasure to be here.
As I said, I thought somehow I had different things in mind when I came in here, but
I had different things in mind. I thought we'd be talking about Scottish football and colonialism and my views on racism and all this stuff, but no.
You might just come back for that. Guys, those of you still awake, Facebook page of the show is The Bunker, How the Hell Did We End Up Here, Bunker Prague on Instagram, Midlife Crisis Warrior on Twitter and Instagram. That's my personal one. And thanks to the sponsors, the Oat Bar and Alfred Jobs, alfred.cz. I don't know. I don't think there's anything more to say. We're good, right?
We're good, Almar. I think let's call it a day or wrap it up. Whatever I don't know what you say in podcast speak.
No, I don't know either. I'm new here. Thank you. Bye-bye.